Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell. You'll get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And when I'm not asking Bruce, hey, how big was Batista's? Well, you know. One of the things I like to do is help people save money. And if you're watching this video right now and you're in a 30-year loan, man, you're overpaying your single biggest bill and you may not even realize it. I want you to do a little experiment for me. Take your calculator out, multiply your monthly house payment by 360 payments. That's how many payments there are in a 30-year loan. That big scary number, that's your total of payments. You're looking at that number? You know you can do better. Keep more of your own money right now and go to savewithconrad.com. Or maybe you've got credit card debt. Man, it's not a matter of if I can save you money with that. Your average interest rate on a credit card is more than 20%. And by the way, all the interest you pay on those credit cards, it's not tax deductible. Whereas the mortgage interest, well, that is tax deductible. So if you owe this debt, it's up to you how to pay it back. Doesn't it make sense to get the cheapest rate possible and the greatest tax deduction possible? Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. Even scores in the 500s can be approved, and it's no cost out of pocket. But maybe best of all, we're licensed in more than 40 states. We can help more families than ever before. But how much can we save you? Find out right now for free with a quick quote from savewithconrad.com.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to My World. And of course, we couldn't do it without the Hall of Famer, the founder of TNA, and that's important today, Mr. Jeff Jarrett. Jeff, how are you, man?
Conrad, how we doing? Was it not important yesterday? Will it not be important tomorrow? Just today?
Well, I'm just saying, this feels like, I don't know, the culmination of what we've been building to. Like, we've been talking about creating TNA for weeks now.
Yes, we have.
We did the whole Not a Boat story and talked about just the transition. And then we did part 1, part 2, and part 3 of creating TNA. And now we're finally at the first episode. And by the way, boys and girls, we're doing this one watch along style. And believe it or not, this is posted on YouTube. Impact Wrestling, who has 4.19 million subscribers on YouTube, has afforded everyone the opportunity to watch this show for free right now on YouTube. So you don't need to sign up for a streaming service. There's no reason not to watch this along with us. And we're watching it right now because as you and I are recording this, Jeff, this show happened, I guess just a couple of days ago, would have been the 19-year anniversary happening on June 19th, 2002. Quite a moment, was it not?
In so many ways, and you just gave the quick recap, but truth be known, we actually touched on this, the firing, the last Nitro, which sort of dovetailed into the Summer of No Worries.
Yep.
Which dovetailed into WWA and the boat story and all that. So yeah, here we are. I'm glad we're finally here. I'm ready to get into talk about other segments of my career, but I don't think we would be completing the, it's not a trilogy. This is the fourth episode, but it all led to this day in so many ways. It was a culmination of, 6 months, 9 months. But it all led into this through the ups and downs. Edmund McManus, Huntsville, a young Conrad Thompson was in the arena.
Yep.
Backyard. Let's get rolling. I'm pretty excited about this. And, the momentum of My World and the feedback. And I feel like I'm getting a little bit more comfortable in my chair. And learning the groove. So here we go. But I am pretty excited about today.
I want to take a time out before we get going for a couple of reasons. Number one, I want to thank everybody who has subscribed to the show and made us number one in the wrestling category week after week after week. We greatly appreciate your support. And thanks for giving poor old Jeff Jarrett a second chance. I know you hated him your whole life. I know he was instant heat. I know he was the original FTR for old Find the Remote. But by God, you've realized after 20 years, he's not a giant piece of shit. And we thank you for that. So hit the subscribe button and tell your friends. I also want to thank our friends at Jimmy's Famous Seafood because now that's in our rearview mirror. We had a great time. Want to give a big shout out to Tony Schiavone and of course, Lindsay, who represents 2% of our female listenership. Jeff, I don't know that you know that, but we have a 2% female listenership, but boy, Lindsay was bringing the noise with those personalized cupcakes. Can't thank you guys enough. Really looking forward to seeing a lot of you guys again at our next event, which will be a part of our ad-free shows get together all out weekend in Chicago. And sadly, somebody we were thinking we were going to try to circle up and have some fun with, because every time we go to Chicago, we want to ring him up, is our old pal, Don West. And literally last week, Jeff, you and I are having a conversation about, okay, let's get Don to cut this video and let's get Don to cut that video. In the middle of all that, we get some pretty shocking news that our pal is in a pretty serious fight right now.
Yes. And, man, you know, when you hear different news and I hung up the phone with Don, and literally, I was, actually with my youngest daughter, and I said, another example that life can change with a phone call, or life can change with a doctor's report, or life can change so quick. But, you know, talking to Don, he's upbeat as ever. He was just about to enter into his first chemo treatment. But he's a fighter. And yes, we were just talking about that and getting him to do this and getting him to do that. And I was, me and him were, as you know, working on a side project, and I was calling him to give him some great news about that. So, yeah, it's amazing. And when you talk about Chicago, you know, Don's a fascinating character.
Yes, big time.
In so many ways. But a lot of people know him from the Shop at Home Network, or then later on, obviously, with TNA Wrestling. But Don couldn't tell you, and I don't know how far back it goes. He could tell you every starting member, the starting lineup of every Chicago Cub team dating back to the 50s. It's quite unique. His sports trivia knowledge. Him and the professor Mike Tenay used to joust in a good, friendly way about sports trivia. And also another little unknown fact about Don is that he won national championships in his high school years and later. That basically, I hate to call it trivia, but Bible verses. He's very schooled in the word and the memorization. And, you know, it's not a spelling bee, but it's a scripture type deal. And,
wow.
And Don can resort. So Don's memory is fascinating. He's a fascinating in a lot of ways. And I know you've got some StarCast stories, and I've got hundreds, if not thousands, of live event stories with Don and doing his daily deals and all that. But, man, he's going to beat this. He's upbeat. He's very positive. Just chatted with him and we texted over the weekend. So you believe in prayer, say a prayer for our friend Don West.
He needs it and he deserves it. Great friend of the show. Can't wait to do some stuff with him, because here's the deal. I know that when this thing gets going, I'm still not done. He ain't going anywhere. Shout out to Don West.
Oh, the StarCast. That was your first time around him, right?
Yeah. I mean, I had seen him at live shows doing his thing, but the first time I really got to like hang was StarCast, and tremendous guy. I think he and my dad would be best of friends. I got to get them together when Don kicks out real soon, because we know he's going to. Oh,
big Lair and Don.
Let's keep him in mind.
Anyway, let's roll.
They're going to. And by the way, he'd like our meet and 3 here in Huntsville, wouldn't he?
Don, are you kidding me?
That'd be his speed.
He'd tear it up. Jeez.
They'd probably have his picture on the wall. So we've got, man, I'm so excited about this show for a lot of reasons. You mentioned it earlier, but my uncle, who just passed away last year, was like my longtime wrestling buddy. Like, he would come over to the house and wake me up on Saturday night, because I was a little kid and I'd fall asleep early, and he'd wake me up to watch Saturday night's main event. And he would take me to TV tapings. He took me to Atlanta once to see an ECW show. No way my parents were doing that, but my uncle HR did. And when he found out about this promotion, he was like, let's go. So we got tickets, and I was, I think 9 rows back on the floor. And it was such a cool thing. And it felt like this is the new WCW. This is the next big thing. This is the alternative. And I was excited that we had something like that in Huntsville. So I knew I wanted to cover this with you really early on. And we did something kind of cool. We actually had you go revisit this arena now, present day in 2021. I know a guy who knows a guy. So we were able to pull that off, thanks to the Elephant Door and Dave Silva. And we've got some really cool footage that we're going to be sharing over at adfreeshows.com. And you might see a little bit drip out on our YouTube channel. If you haven't already, be sure to look up the My World podcast on YouTube. It's growing by leaps and bounds, and we greatly appreciate the support. But we're going to be watching this show on YouTube. And I guess I should give a spoiler. You and I watched this together a couple of weeks ago, and it was the first time you had seen it in years, right?
Oh gosh, in years. And I don't believe that I've ever watched it. Did you fast forward it all that night? It's been a couple of weeks ago, but
I fast forwarded one match, but we've never, that you said, this is the first time I've watched it sort of start to finish. You'd seen clips.
And context is king, as our friend EB says. The context of me watching it with you, my podcast partner, knowing we're going to be discussing it. It's not like me and the team had to go grab a soundbite here or a shot there or edit here. It was a completely different mindset that I've never had it. Back in the day when we would have to go grab clips, show one or the early shows were always fun. The Tennessee Titans situation, which we'll get to down the road. But watching it with you and Cassio and the Elephant Door, Dave Silva, is that his new name now?
Well, it's better than what you normally call him. Let's jump into the show. God. Let's fire up your YouTube. By the way, we're going to have a link in our description. So if you're wondering, I don't know where to find it, let me recommend that you just check the description for the show. And in the description, you'll see the YouTube link where you can watch along with us. By the way, if you haven't already, let's show them some love. Go ahead and subscribe to the Impact Wrestling channel too. I'm fired up about this though. And here's what we're going to do. Jeff, I know this is your first walk down the whole watch along experience lane goes. So I'm going to give a countdown backwards from 3, 3, 2, 1, play. And when I say play, we'll press play. And I've got, in spite of us doing a watch along, 10 pages of notes. So this is going to be fun. Are you ready?
Oh my gosh. Saddle up.
Hey, Big Daddy, you got to get excited about saving people money. Woo! Woo!
SaveWithConrad.com. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1, play. And you can see the ring ropes flopping around there, and you can see where the ring is already broken. We're going to talk about that, but the big pyro, is this an old WCW guy you're using for pyro here, or somebody that another service lined up for you?
They had worked, I think, with both organizations. Pyro companies are third-party vendors, and even back in those days, some would be WCW vendors, some would be WWF. But I believe the company at times had worked for both of them. And there's our man Don West. Very first thing, kind of bizarre. He had never, this is his first wrestling show ever. And we certainly didn't plan on having him walk out first. But he's looking at the guy, he's nervous. He almost threw up before the show. So go ahead, Conrad. Yeah, I'll follow your lead.
He had done some independence. We talked about how we did a trial run, but it is sort of fascinating in hindsight to think about the first person you ever see on a TNA broadcast is Don West. And by the way, you're probably wondering, cause I'll never forget when I watched this back with you. And I said, boy, nothing says total nonstop action like opening the show with Don fucking West. And by the way, he's a great friend of mine. I'm a big fan of his, but I kind of forgot. Oh yeah. You guys were stalling because the damn ring broke. You had a dark match that night with a tryout with a big fella who wrestled under the name Cheeks. And then we see the third man of our broadcast booth, easy for me to say, Mr. Mike Tenay. He's suited and booted in a tuxedo, but boy, the other two are all personality. We just saw Ed Ferrara with dreadlocks, leather shirt, leather pants. And then, as he walks right behind him there. And then we see Don West here sporting a Hawaiian shirt that would make Mark Madden jealous.
To go back on the show, Open Conrad with the old gladiator statue, that by design, just a little footnote, was to sort of lay out that we're about tradition,
yep,
but we're going to give you a lot of action. And literally 15 minutes before this went down, I'm backstage, either producing a pre-tape or shooting one or something involved. I had no idea that a 450-pound wrestler had snapped hit the ropes, ring breaks. And so from a production standpoint, I'm talking about from Keith Mitchell all the way down, Steve Small, our arena production, Greg Horn, our scenic, everybody on headsets. I didn't even know what was going on. They're in mass confusion. What are we going to do? And I can remember my father and others, coming to me and what do you think? And this and that and all this. And I said, flip flop it, because by design, and we'll get to it here in a minute, I wanted to start the show with the X Division, the alternative, the different, and our players in it, as you'll see, arguably the best 6 X Division guys coming out of the roster. I know Psychosis is coming up later, but AJ Styles, Jerry Lynn, the Flying Elvises, and that's obviously a character given name, but Jimmy Yang, the talent was deep. The craziness. There's young Jeremy Borash on camera with a nice
legends of the National Wrestling Alliance. At this time, please allow me to introduce to you the former 8-time NWA Heavyweight Champion of the World, Handsome Harley Race.
Big deal to have Harley Race on your first show. But again, as a reminder, this was not the original plan. The plan was a 6-man, high-flying, high-impact X Division style match. And then we come out and celebrate the tradition of professional wrestling with some of these legends. Instead, let's let the announcers come out one at a time. That wasn't originally the idea, nor was introducing the legends, but we had to make do with the ring. So the real question is, how'd you fix the ring?
So Ron and Don Harris, 6'7" twins, both with 270, 280. Actually, my good friend and chiropractor, Dr. Tim, who just, they lassoed up anybody up because they didn't have the time. They had to use some brute strength to get the come-alongs and the turnbuckles underneath and the cable reattached. So it was just so chaotic. And you can imagine backstage, because all the legends, Dory Funk, Harley Race, Ricky Steamboat, Jackie Fargo, who was already nipping. We had to gather them and say, nope, you're not on second, which would have been 20, 25 minutes. You're up right now. And to get them to come through the aisle. And, again, Don West, yes, he's done hours upon hours of Home Shopping Network and been to a few independent wrestling shows. He had never been on TV in a wrestling role ever.
Not performing in front of a live crowd. That's the big thing we're trying to do.
Yeah. And so it was, Ed Farrar, for lack of a better word, he's playing a new character. He's not Ed, the writer. He's Ed, the color commentator. So God rest his soul. There's Bullet Bob Armstrong walking down the aisle. But man, Conrad, this is a different format. This is a lot of fun, but there's so many different things going on. I wish we could almost start and stop, but this podcast would turn out to be 8 hours. But just the context of, I looked at the pyro and hanging on that one shot that was so slow and not a transition, but you got to give everybody a mulligan in a lot of ways, because nobody knew if this show was going to take place at this time. Nobody.
Also, too, they probably wanted to shoot around the ring, right? You don't want to show the ring is under repair, right?
Oh, if you saw all the black shirts around ring, everybody scattering. There was 1,000 things going on, but when the show comes on there, we wanted to capture shots of fans and then get right into the action. That was sort of by design. No need for promos, nothing. Get right in to X Division action. But as fate would have it, we didn't get to go there.
Ricky Steamboat coming down with the NWA World Title, and it's a big moment. You got all these legends, but you said something a minute ago I want to circle back to. Jackie Fargo was already nipping. Now, that seems like an Old South word for he was having a few swigs of alcoholic beverage.
I'll just say he had a lot of good friends throughout his career. I think Dr. Royal might have been his best.
Oh, Mr. Crown.
Well, you can call him Mr. Crown. I always like to call him Dr. Royal.
Sure, I understand. So we got Steamboat here.
He could fix a common cold quick.
Let's listen to what Steamboat's saying.
Right. It gives me great pleasure to stand in this squared circle, and the many times that I was in this circle, and throughout my wrestling career would someday be a world champion. And it did happen. That memorable night with Ric Flair, the Nature Boy.
That's what we're talking about.
Chicago, 1989, and became an NWA world champion. You know something, ladies and gentlemen? This belt, of all the championships I've won and all these gentlemen that stand here with me, this belt means more to me and to them than any championship I've ever held in my life. The NWA Championship.
And that's coming from his heart.
I like he said, and these other men in the ring who held it, you mean Harley.
Are you going to get, are you going to believe what he says or what you see, Conrad?
I'm just kidding. Dory's there too. Hey, a lot of our listeners are going to be familiar with Harley Race and Dory Funk. And we've talked a little bit about Bill Behrens. Everybody listening to this knows Bob Armstrong and certainly Ricky Steamboat, but Corsica Joe and his wife, Sarah Lee. Add some context.
Corsica Joe, we'll call him an old timer, obviously, but a journeyman. But you know, that's not a negative connotation, but that's a husband and wife. They, you know, married for years and years. Corsica Joe wrestled in territory after territory, but he settled in Nashville. And then his wife, Sarah, who you will see in later episodes, she ran the box office. And she was good friends with my grandmother through the years, but they were legends. And you know, we wanted to have by design, a ring full of legends. And you can't have 7 Dory Funks, but you can have a Dory, you can have a Harley, you can have a Ricky Steamboat, and that's 3 very prestigious champions.
Yeah.
And Jackie Fargo, you know, he had a run in the old WWF. Obviously, he settled in Memphis as well.
Oh, wait a minute. What is this noise?
Hopefully we're going to kick things off a little bit here. What do you mean kick things off? This was a very respectful way. We're kicking things off right now. Look at what's that. What the hell is Jeff Jarrett doing out here? Nobody invited him to this party. He's out here to get this party started, Mike, today.
The gauntlet for the gold. 2 guys are going to start, and there's going to be a total walking down this aisle. That's the biggest bunch of crap I've ever heard in my life.
What do you mean? Explain yourself.
Ricky Steamboat, did you win the title in a stupid battle royal?
No, he beat Ric Flair.
Did you win your title back in 1902 in a battle royal? Hell no, you didn't.
It was 1969.
This is the biggest joke of an NWA title that I've ever witnessed. I win my title man to man, Fargo. You butt out of it, you old fart.
Kiss my ass.
Whoa! Oh, man, it's getting stirred up.
Nobody, boy.
That's the fabulous from Jackie Fargo.
I remember when you was that high steel dude doing yellow. So I don't want to hear about how you try to.
There's the strut that we talked about.
You don't do it like the fabulous one does. So don't give me that. For all your mouth running on that stage, I'm going to do you an honor tonight, Mr. Jarrett. I'm going to put you on the very first match and let you try to beat all 20 of them people.
He's going to be the first entrant in the gauntlet for the gold. He's forcing him. He's an NWA representative.
If I step in the ring first, that's all right with me, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to proceed to kick 19 other asses, and I'm going to walk out of here the new NWA World Heavyweight Champion.
I've got to respect that from Jeff Jarrett. He's just been given a raw deal, and he's going to step up.
So, was Fargo a little knackered, hammered, slithered?
Just, you saw him jump the gun. He didn't have the mic up to his mouth. And look, I love Jackie. But out of all the legends in the ring, he still had the most gumption. He had the most energy, and he got the job done.
You're right about how this NWA title match is played out. It sucks.
Hey, man.
But you may be whipping 18 other people's asses in that ring, but you ain't whipping number 19. And that's me.
Yeah! It's on like neck bone. Wait a minute. Now what? Everybody's looking around. When we hit the music,
look up there.
There he is. You talk about a familiar.
That son of a bitch just looks like a star, doesn't he?
Yes, and he is a star.
I'm just saying, just walking through a crowd in a t-shirt.
Side down. Memorial Day, 1996, with his appearance on Monday Nitro for World Championship Wrestling, and Scott Hall has come out into the crowd.
We wanted to tell a story and establish history. You know, Shamrock wasn't exactly.
Hey, yo.
He was supposed to take a little bit more of a babyface slant, but Scott, you know, with his, he's the biggest babyface on the card, in my opinion.
By the way, Meltzer would say, the audience was polite enough. Steamboat talked about the NWA belt being the equivalent of the NBA championship, Super Bowl, or Stanley Cup. For a guy who was never known as a great interview, he gave one of the best interviews this year so far. The crowd reacted to Steamboat as a bigger star than any of the wrestlers on the show, and they really should hire him in a commissioner/special referee type role as a babyface who doesn't have to play the sideshow clown role. And then he gets critical. He says, Jarrett came out, said it was stupid.
Hold on. He was already critical. He's already given directive, but that's okay.
Jarrett came out and said it was stupid for the title to be decided in a battle royal. Great. Let's let everyone know our bookers are stupid on day one, since virtually every fan watching knew he was right. He brought up that Funk and Race never won their world titles in a battle royal. Fargo then shot back and only had one line to say, which was that he was ordering Jeff first in the battle royal. They should have picked Armstrong or Steamboat to deliver the line because Fargo said he was ordering Jarrett in the first match. Luckily, Tenay covered for him right away. Surprisingly, since he's booking the thing, Jarrett didn't even sell it. Shamrock came out, said the battle royal idea sucked. Hall came out. He said it sucked as well. Well, they didn't learn anything from the mistakes of WCW. Before we respond, here's Goldilocks.
But the Psycho Dwarf, and he's told me that he's got something that he wants to say.
That's right. Let's start the show off with midgets. Why? Because midgets are the true stars of this country. The day I came out of my mama, yeah, I said the day I came out of my mama, the nurses and the doctors just stopped and stared. When I was a little child, weeble wobbling down the street, everybody stopped and stared. And now TNA brings me to Huntsville, Alabama, and they got these two midgets up at T.O. in Hollywood. All I want to say is I want to see some midget blood, and I just think I can provide that.
Josh Fargo, who in the hell does he think with jackass?
So we heard from Puppet, and here come the girls in cages, and you could even hear over the feed. I don't know if you heard it in your headphones. We didn't hear it on TV the other night. You can hear director cues making it through the feed. I heard them say right there, "Oh, get ready for the TNA girls." It's kind of fun to hear that come through.
It was the first time the ball team was playing.
Yeah, no, listen, I'm not knocking it. By the way, what a nice presentation. I mean, I know we've talked about money a little bit on the way into this. You said that you were all in, had all your personal savings in this. What do you think your expense for the actual production piece is? The set design, the pyro, the lighting, all that stuff.
Oh gosh, Conrad. Greg Horn, who's actually with AEW today, he was our scenic guy from day one all the way through TNA. It'd be hard I'd love to get a record, but you know, we knew that I didn't go overboard with it. I didn't want to go overboard with pyro because pyro, to me, you can shoot pyro. You can have great pyro and shoot it wrong, and you just blow your money, or you can have a little pyro and shoot it right, and you look like it's the 4th of July. So it's really a mixed bag. It's a production value, but what a way to kick off. And as the first match gets started, now you see what it was supposed to be, leading with AJ Styles. But man, I feel like we're just skipping over so much, but in time we'll come back to it. But
well, chat away. What are we skipping over? We see Sonny Siaki here.
I mean, he and I hate to get into the Meltzer conversation. He doesn't think Fargo should have made it. He should have said Bullet. The opinionated stuff. If you're going to discuss it, I feel like I ought to rebuttal
Please
a little
do.
bit, but maybe it's move on down the line that, by design, I was supposed to be the one that was disgruntled with the Gauntlet for the Gold, and the baby faces were supposed to be pro for it. It didn't exactly get executed that way. But hey, we had to start a story night one, and I felt it was in everybody's best interest. Tournaments never draw. They suck. They don't get ratings. They don't get buy rates. I didn't want to drag out 4, 6, 8 weeks of crowning a champion. I don't think there's an upside to that at all. So the gauntlet for the gold, was decided on to establish a champion that night.
Timeout. You just said a minute ago, we decided, look who the referee is, by the way, Mr. Slick Johnson. We got a story or two about him in the coming weeks, I'm sure, but chat me up. You said, and I'm fascinated by this. The idea was I would come out, and as the heel, I would be against the battle royal concept, but the baby faces would be for it. And it didn't exactly work out that way. Why the fuck not? Why didn't they just come out and put it over? Did they go into business for themselves and veer off script?
Yes, they did. And again, that's exactly what happened. And, Kenny, he got the point across that, hey, Jeff, you may beat up 18 other guys.
He ain't beating me. Yeah.
Yeah. But he elaborated and followed up on what I said. And then Scott's always been that tweener, the cool tweener, and that's gotten over. He has a way of delivering, and I didn't get to hear exactly what he said, but he has a way of delivering sort of both sides. But as Meltzer reports, which I don't think is completely accurate by any stretch of the imagination. Look at AJ fly through the air. But anyway, it's one of those things that, again, to put it back in context, we were running by the seat of our pants in a lot of ways just to get it done.
So let's mention too, that this show, June 19th, is 5 days before the WWE or WWF at the time is going to run the King of the Ring show. How important was it, as far as vying for pay-per-view dollars, to have the show the Wednesday before as opposed to the Wednesday after?
It really depends on, Jay Hausman would have, Lynn Sabal would have, In Demand would have, anybody had an opinion on that. I kind of always looked at it, and there was a couple of cable operators. I don't want to say before this event, but through time would say it's in the calendar month. Everybody pays their cable bill monthly.
Yeah.
Yes, it's an impulse buy. But look, June 19th was not 100% our decision. I think we wanted to start in June, and we might have started on the 5th, but there was a boxing event, and then we juggled that. It's the 12th available. No, then we had to get the building. So there were a lot of, nothing was going to be perfect coming out of the gate. I mean, nothing was going to be perfect, and it wasn't by any stretch. The ring broke, but we got it fixed. That in and of itself, Conrad, imagine right now if the rings, if these guys would have been wrestling in a ring with floppy ropes. You can't really have an X Division match.
No, you can't do it.
Really tight ropes. So thank God. Oh my gosh. Thank God that they did get fixed.
So we were talking about a million things today, because a lot of stuff happening here as we see Sonny Siaki taking a beating from Low Ki. By the way, I was convinced when I first saw Sonny Siaki and Low Ki, boy, these guys are going to be breakout stars here, but there's a lot to unpack. Look at Sonny Siaki, dude. He looks like a movie star. Chat me up. The Flying Elvises. What the fuck is this?
Oh, heaven forbid we give 3 guys that had never been on national TV a little character. And they all sort of had a different type look, but we made them a team. I had no idea if this was going to be a 1-week wonder or a 6-month wonder. It is the proverbial, let's give him a little character and see if you can have a breakout star. I was always a big fan of Jorge Estrada as well. Jimmy Yang from the WCW days, they all could go. And look, if you send 6 guys out there with essentially no character, in my opinion, Conrad, first time viewer watching this, do you have any idea who you should cheer for and who you should boo?
No, I totally understand what you're saying. It's okay to have 3 individuals on the other side, but one of the sides needs to look like a team. So this looks like a team. And I get from like sometimes my parents will come over to watch a fight and they know the headline, but they don't know the underneath guys. Right. So some of those preliminary fights, they'll say, oh, the guy in the red trunks. Oh, the guy in the blue trunk. They don't know their names. You know what I mean? They don't really care, but they want to be able to express who they're talking about. So I understand that piece, but the actual decision to not just make them, a team with a different name, but it's going to be silly, tongue in cheek. Is this like a Nicolas Cage? Because he had a big movie, not too.
Sure.
Yeah,
it's all in the vein of some type of pop culture shred.
Yeah.
Look.
Here's what I'm driving at. Is this Jerry Jarrett's idea?
I seriously doubt if it would more be toward the Russo camp or the Ferrara camp or even the Jeff Jarrett camp or the Showbiz. Look, it's not T.L. Hopper or Duke the Dumpster, but it's a character.
Yeah. Are you shitting on T.L. Hopper right now?
Not at all. I love Dirty White Boy.
That's Dave Silva's favorite move right there. That flip over DDT.
AJ has done it to perfection. Look how young AJ look. Well,
he's so far ahead of his time. I mean, he's still doing this stuff, but a lot of the stuff that you're seeing here, my God, he took his head off with that. That was phenomenal. This is a really good match, dude.
It's it's low key. These six and Jerry, the quarterback of it all. And so, that night watching this back at your house, Conrad, for the first time in a long time, having these six guys, is it perfect? No, but man, they damn sure tore it down. And it was a heck of a way to have our first outing that we are the alternative. Yes, NWA lineage since 1905, but this is a different wrestling in-ring product.
Meltzer gave it 3 3/4 stars. He says, started off fast with Low-Ki hitting a tope and Lynn with a plancha. Yang was doing the Shining Wizard all over the place. Great athletic style action match, and the crowd loved it. Low-Ki hit brutal kicks. Yang hit a great leg lariat on Styles. Everyone hit their big moves at the end before Yang pinned Styles with a Yang time. This match could not have been better. 3 3/4 stars. And if that was really the first thing people saw, it is the epitome of total nonstop action. But instead we saw Don West and Jackie Fargo. But it's not your fault. The ring broke. And
but
there
we got
it is.
Fixed. Kind of amazing.
Dude, it's like, I've told you before off air, if cats have 9 lives, Jarrett's have 10. Well, this was one of them right here when the ring ropes broke, but we still pull it together.
And over on Ad Free, we've got to have a Paulie, let him talk to one of the Harris brothers, talk to Dr. Tim Adair, maybe even a Bill Behrens. There's some real fascinating stories. If we just talk about this first event, that would be very complimentary to my world. But just the ins and outs. This was the launching pad in so many ways.
The girls in cages, Ed Ferrara picked them out. Vince Russo. You said
I'm
Jerry
not sure what audition process they went through, but if I remember correctly, Jeremy Borash was running point on that.
I'm sure it was extensive then.
Excuse me?
I'm sure it was extensive.
Oh, you know it.
Yeah.
But no, I think good old
Exhaustive.
JB back in the day was running point on that.
Speaking of running point, here comes one of the stars of the show. And you felt like, again, as we see, am I saying it right? Tio
the puppet.
Tio coming to the ring now, taking on,
played shortstop, and I'm not kidding. Second base in high school baseball. Incredible athlete, like really, really good athlete. You'll see the athleticism as the match goes on.
This is old school wrestling. Those old famous wrestling posters that we've seen for years and years used to list all the matches. And then they would say something like, plus, 8 more big matches, the girls and midgets or something like that. Now, of course, these days you would never position it like that or talk like that. By the way, let's listen. Oh man, I missed it.
In the corner. Of course, Tio came to prominence.
Tio's chopping the shit out of Hollywood here.
He sure is.
He is a little ball of motion though. It is wide open, nonstop. He is total nonstop action inside the ring. I mean, he's even bouncing around the ring like Muhammad Ali in between moves and transitions. I guess my question is, this is not something that we had seen a lot of on a national stage. The WWF briefly tried to experiment a little bit in 97, and very briefly in 98, but really not in a long time had we seen this on a big show. And now here it is. Why did you feel strongly that this belonged? Was this a Jerry Jarrett idea, a Vince Russo idea? Chat me up.
This is mine. And we're skipping over. You see who the referee is. Scott Armstrong.
Hey, how about that?
Yeah. So anyway, a family affair. Bullet Bob was there and Scott was there, but no Road Dogg. But no, again, I'll call it the variety show mentality or psychology that, I'll call it especially during this era and maybe every era. Midgets, little guys are always 100% comedy. And I wanted these guys to go out and have as much of a in-ring wrestling match as they possibly could. I'd seen T.O. Multiple times over the last year and a half, 2 years. He was on the WWA tour, but these guys could go. And I said, go out and have you the best wrestling match possible. T.O., great dude, very good athlete. And so, look, start with the X Division. Wanted to bring some nostalgia in. And look, let's give them 2 guys that can go. The little guys, and as you see, they can go.
Yeah. And by the way, Tia was really putting the wood to Slim Shady here. Eminem is looking worse for wear in the corner. So here's the recap from Meltzer. T.O. pinned Hollywood with a swanton in 2 minutes and 49 seconds. Hollywood was a quote unquote enhancement midget. Bad idea. These guys have got to go. 1 star. And here comes your swanton. And by the way, not off the bottom rope, not off the second rope. He's going all the way to the top. Say what you want, but guy's a performer.
Yeah. And good old Newsletter Dave said they got to go. Just no space in this real wrestling. No, back to the variety mentality. They how long was that? Maybe 4-minute match?
2 minutes, 49 seconds.
Okay. Again, variety. It's not,
it's not a 30-minute thing.
It's not 7 matches of straight tags or 7 main events or 7 X Division or whatever it may be.
And we're dark again and back to the girls in cages. Got to talk
transition, Conrad, so we don't have to go backstage and have total nonstop talking.
Like we started the show with, you mean?
Yeah. I'm going to get you fired up over there today.
No, I'm listen, buddy. I'm ready today. Hey,
I know you are.
I want to add some context to what we just saw too, because we really glossed over it because there was so much great action in that first match. Jimmy Wang Yang, one of the more criminally underrated performers. Country has a turnip green, but a fantastic wrestler. Same thing with Estrada. And then we know that Jerry Lynn, former ECW world champion, now an AEW agent. Styles is arguably one of the top guys in all of the business. I was convinced that Low Key was going to be a tippy top guy. I was totally bought in. It didn't happen. Everybody has a theory as to why. We're going to be talking a lot about Low Key as we talk about early TNA days for the next, year or two. Why do you think that the real life Brandon Sylvester didn't become a bigger star?
Own worst enemy. And he's not the first and he won't be the last. He has an incredible amount of talent.
Yeah.
You can not really look at my opinion or your opinion, but it is very much a mutual consensus. He had every tool necessary to be you just called him tippy top guy, but I could not agree more. And we had heavily invested over the years to go that direction. But it happened in Japan. It's happened multiple places. But again, look, he's not the only guy that's been down that road. Many times in my career, I've been my own worst enemy. Thank God I've had some good mentors to pull me up out of it. But no, that's it in a nutshell to me.
His style was unique. He had a different look. By the way, the women are coming out fast and furious here as Ed Ferrara and Don West are in the ring. They're going to introduce 10 women. Here's what Meltzer had to say. It's really bad when I, who spent all day watching bad wrestling videos, couldn't pick half of them out of a police lineup. Some uncharismatic women out there. Anyway, from what I could gather, because their names were said so fast, there were no graphics and the cameras were all on the wrong women as the announcers were talking. I noticed a Joni, a Francine, Alexis Lurie. There she is right now. We know her as Mickey James. Taylor Vaughn, formerly Barbara Bush in the WWF, or BB, the EMT. Aaron, quote, now it's too bad they didn't give her background, but I will. She was a contestant on Tough Enough and was probably going to be picked. She had a rendezvous with one of the judges. Word got out. And because of all the talk about how easy for me to say, how unfair that is, they couldn't pick her without everyone crying foul. Then there's Elektra, who we see coming out now from ECW, Shannon, who we already saw, formerly Daphne, Tyler, and Sasha. I have no idea who the last two were, but one was a stripper that they used simply because they needed an extra. Whew. So this is not great stuff. It feels like filler. It feels like a bad episode of Raw. It's not exciting, but it is delivering on the name, because you assume when you order a pay-per-view with the name TNA that there's going to be some ladies, some scantily clad ladies. And well, I guess here they are. Chat me up.
I was going to say, yeah, that's your segue. Here they are.
Well, I'm just trying for you to talk sense into, hey man, you know what you want to pay $10 for? Watch some girls standing around in the ring.
If I remember correctly, and I'll take your lead on this, but the following week was the lingerie battle royal.
Yes.
Yes. And so this was the in-ring to set it up. And you just said like an episode of a bad Raw, but you're comparing it to Raw. So it's a Raw. And that's the most successful, longest episodic running television show in history. I'm kidding. But no, it was a setup for the following week. Again, you know, are they 10 or how you said 10? Are they 10 household names? Absolutely not. But a young Mickey James in there. But this was one of those deals that startup promotion. Let's make this segment concise and at least let the people see and tease what they might see the following week. A very simple psychology. Give them a tease. Francine, by far the most known. And so without recalling any notes, that's why she did most of the talking here.
We're going to listen to a little bit of this when Elektra chimes in.
You ever done for the wrestling business? I'll tell you. Number one, who deemed you Queen of Extreme? I see there's many other ladies in this ring, and you want to know what? This is a new company. I don't hear Extreme in the title. Unless you're ashamed that you single-handedly bankrupted another company.
And there's your cat fight moment. But Elektra, who was a dancer in Sopranos in the fictitious Bada Bing strip club, is here in pants for her cat fight, but they did rip her shirt off. And of course, Don West always willing to lend a helping hand with a big shit eating grin.
Don's very first wrestling show. Hey, Don, we're going to get you to cover up a female's
bare chest.
Don's very first live television. No, I just got to chuckle at that. But yeah, again, watching this back and knowing that it was a setup for the following week, was it executed flawlessly? Not by any stretch of the imagination. But it got the job done.
So here's what Meltzer says. Francine cut a promo saying she was the only star, which I guess she was. Elektra, in that Elektra voice, whatever that means, blamed her for single-handedly bankrupting another company. Francine responded by tearing Elektra's top off in a cat fight. West put his jacket over her bra immediately. It wasn't his jacket. It was Ferraris, whatever. When we see lingerie and thongs on free TV every week, and this is being called TNA, I'm not advocating it because this segment sucked bad, but the worst thing they can be is less risque on pay-per-view than the other guys are on free TV, which I think is probably a fair critique. But first,
Plumtree. Story of a life filled with torment. Torment leading to pain. Pain leading to will. Will leading to power. Power allowing me to bring my tag team, who, in our formative years, were my tormentors, now my servants. They do what I tell them to do when I tell them to do it. They wear what I tell them to, without questioning, for they know that they owe me their freedom, their livelihoods, their very lives. They don't speak unless I allow them to. They listen only to me, and now I call upon them to once and for all make their presence known in this arena. Rewriting the history books of this sport, I give to you my tag team, the Johnson.
So that's Mortimer Plumtree, and I got to tell you, it was a pretty strong promo. I mean, he did a good job of that, right?
And yeah, I mean, Morty can talk and always had, but another thing that, again, to put it in context, Goldilocks, she had never done a wrestling event in her life. And I've worked with lots of male and female announcers that don't really react at all from a body language or facial. I thought she did an excellent job there. But yeah, I mean, again, the brand new game one, Morty, and here come the Johnsons, the Shane brothers out of Tampa, Florida. But Morty could always talk. And again, he was also working behind the scenes as well.
Supposedly the next year he's going to, I think, be written out of the show by Vince Russo. That's the rumor and innuendo, because he felt like Mortimer had aligned himself with Jeff Jarrett. We'll talk about that another time, but still, I thought that was a decent little promo. He'd been in the business since, I guess, the mid 90s. Mm-hmm. That's a good promo. And here's the Shane twins. I think they broke in like 98. So they're a couple years in, being trained down in Dean Malenko's school in Florida. So pretty cool deal to see them here. And how about this? Psychosis and a super young James Storm. And you recently talked about him on the program, where your dad was really impressed with him when he saw him at an independent at, I think, Burt Prentice's show, because he has, you know, the cowboy hat and he has the long duster. But when he's going to open that duster, he's going to reveal that he's got a little something extra around his waist, and it's going to entertain the crowd. It is something that I could see how it would get over in a big way at a spot show or an independent. But this is the first time that I can think of that something like this was done, at least in this era. Let's take a listen.
So he goes around town wearing a duster and no pants on, is what you're saying to me.
I'm not saying that in the least.
Okay, he's got a gun.
Whoa!
Hey, Ed, you got to admit, you and I saw him in one of the most incredible.
So spinning the pistols, firing the blanks, kind of a cool little moment.
James, through the years, but James has never had a problem playing a character, and he always plays an extension of himself. And you know, he's, whether it was Beer Money through the years or in the Cowboy James Storm, he always worked hard, always, I don't want to say this in the Dwayne Johnson vibe of knowing your role, but James did. He knew how to work a tag match and to be a partner. He knew how to be a single. He could be a heel. He can be a babyface. Learned his craft and was good at it from from an early age. And Psychosis is a guy that I traveled with in WCW, both runs, just super talented, and can work. Another thing about this is, putting Psychosis in there. He obviously a Lucha Libre star, but Nicho, Psychosis can work the American style. So it was very important. And, in the ring right now, Psychosis is by far the most experienced guy. So again, a little diversity, a lot of character in the heels with the Johnsons and Morty, but then a cowboy and then a lucha star. So we checked all the diversity boxes, wouldn't you say?
Tell me about these wrestling dicks here. These guys you got dressed up like penises. Is this a Jeff Jarrett idea?
Oh, of course. He went to a graphic artist here in town and had some sketches and had short ones and long ones and wide ones and all. No, Conrad, it was not a Jeff Jarrett idea. This would be, I'll put it on my shoulders. I'm trying to think who originally came up with this.
Well,
it was a Vince, or if it was a Vince and a JB. I mean, Ed Ferrara was in the circle. I really, it wasn't Morty. It wasn't my father. I don't think I came up with the original idea. There's Tim McGraw in the background if you're watching this, but it's just kidding. The guy looked like Tim McGraw. A lot of cowboy hats. Obviously a big James Storm fan there. But no, how else would you like me to chat me up about the Johnsons?
Well, we've had Flying Elvises in the first match, Little People in the second match. Now we've got wrestling dicks, human penises.
And there you go. It's like bad news travels, good news travels slow. You failed to mention that we had maybe the three right up there at the top. I know Flair's not involved, but Dory Funk, Ricky Steamboat, and Harley Race.
Who did they wrestle?
Who did they wrestle on this show?
It was Total Nonstop Action, not TNT, not Total Nonstop Talking. I'm just saying. By the way, this match is 4:49. Meltzer would say everyone hustled. Storm was distracted by Plumtree, and one mask guy hit a Samoan drop on him for the pin. This wasn't horrible, but it accomplished nothing, and it looks to be a dead gimmick. I mean, at this point, I'm not asking this to be funny. I'm really not.
Yep,
but okay. Did you honestly think, man, this Johnson tag team, this is going to get over. We're going to have merch. Kids and dads are going to be wearing these masks out in the crowd. We're going to have shirts that we can get in the Walmart, cause Big Johnson was a whole thing back then as a t-shirt. It's a different time. I realize this ages poorly, but I'm saying people were like, Johnson was a thing. The Man Show was on the air. Did you think legitimately, man, this thing's going to get over? Or did you just think, fuck, we got to have a way to showcase Plumtree, and I got to get Psychosis something. And the Storm Kid might have something. Let's put on a wrestling show.
And I hate to say water cooler talk, but chatter talk. I didn't want to send just quote unquote wrestlers to the ring. And still to this day, I thought Morty is a very underrated talent.
Agreed.
Verbal skills.
Agreed.
I thought that there could be potential to surround him with a group of guys. The Johnson idea was pitched to me. I'm sure that I thought, okay, it's better than walking out just as a regular tag team. And again, brand new product. You've got a cowboy and a lucha star against heels. Did I think there was going to be merch? Probably not. Did I think that it was going to be, like get over like mega main events in week 7? No. But I like the Shane twins, and I wanted to put them under a mask and see what came of it.
Yeah. Well, so here it is. By the way, we should mention we've had Ryan Shamrock at ringside. I guess in the aisleway. What was the plan with Ryan Shamrock? You knew her from the WWF and needed some good looking ladies here.
Something that we can plant a seed and see where it goes week 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, but just plant a seed.
Yeah. Here comes the, the tornado DDT doesn't happen. Plumtree getting involved. Damn it. That dirty heel. Who made your ring stuff? You've told us before, I think, that the mats around the ring, if you flip them over, are actually old Nitro mats. But go ahead.
Yeah. I reached out to Jody Hamilton. He's old timer. I'd known him through the years, and he had a ring and mats. And then our scenic guy, as I referenced earlier, he used to work for a company here locally in Nashville called Scene 3, which worked on country music videos. I mean, they're a scenic company, and offices in New York and LA, but they design and they had the ring skirts, if that's what you're talking about. And the turnbuckles, they're the ones that had it printed up. And here we are, just a little planting the seed of
Slick Johnson handing some money to Ryan Shamrock.
Yes. And okay. Who's she paying off, and why is she paying it off? Is she in cahoots with Mortimer Plumtree? Just another something to get something started.
Let's get jacked up.
Oh, yeah.
I got to meet Fluff, his Bo's girlfriend.
I actually got, yeah.
That's my cousin too.
Okay, well, I'm going to go tape something right now, so.
We're on TV, Bo. You want me to real quick? You're going that way. You want me to
Sure, absolutely. Okay. Oh.
Isn't that?
Hi, which one is she?
Well, she's Bo's girlfriend, and I told you she's my girlfriend, and
okay.
Right. There you go.
Hey, guys.
Oh!
I'm sorry. No, there's no beer drinking here in the locker room. I need you to put those things down. We don't want any intoxicated wrestlers out in our ring, so just put those things down right now. Thank you.
Okay.
Geez, there are sure some wussies here in the NWA.
Hey, Bo, whoever heard of getting drunk on beer?
Yeah, it's really nice meeting you.
Where you going?
All of you, really. I'm gonna go do something over here.
I wish viewers could see your face, Conrad, as you watch that back.
So next up, some race car drivers.
Murdoch, are we not going to comment on good old Trevor?
We are.
A young Trevor.
I want to set the stage, though, that Hermie Sadler and Sterling Marlin are about to come out. And Meltzer is going to say they got big pops. Yes, bigger than any of the wrestlers on the show. And, of course, this is what we've been talking about for weeks. We wanted to brush up with NASCAR and country music. Well, here's a piece of it. But we just met the Dupps. Meltzer would say Bo Dupp is one of the originals, real name Murray Happer, picking his nose and eating it. I think he's got a brother named Stand Up, real name Bill Mueller, parentheses, I think. That is Trevor Murdoch. I have no idea where he's from. The idea is they're both doing it with their cousin, Fluffed Up, who is so backwoods that she's doing the hillbilly gimmick that's been dead since Hillbilly Jim nearly 20 years ago. Barron saw all three drinking beer, informed them this is a professional, blah, 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 blah. So here's the thing. I had no idea watching this back that was Trevor Murdoch. I also didn't realize the dude was born in 80. His birthday's in September. So here he is making his pay-per-view debut at 21 years old. Who'd have thunk it?
Got to give young guys opportunities. I mean, and that literally, that's what it was about. Let's give them something new and fresh. Again, a startup that you didn't want to have all ex-WCW or ECW guys, or for that matter, ex-WWF guys. Give a variety.
It's important to mention, I'm not a NASCAR guy, but I know that they tally points after every race. And at this point in the season, Sterling Marlin is the points leader. So he's the top dog in NASCAR and he's on your show. So even if it's not your necessarily your thing, there it is. And here comes Ron Killings. Let's listen a minute.
Wrestling. You guys call yourself athletes? You got no damn business inside a professional wrestling ring.
Awful strong words. Jeremy's apologizing to Sterling. You see that? Look at that.
He's a suck up.
I am an athlete. You're looking at an athlete. My kind are athletes. Your kind drive a car around a circle in a left motion continuously.
Whoa.
My kind, we dunk basketballs. We throw touchdowns. We run for touchdowns. We do arm drops. We do leg drops. My grandmama can do what you do.
Why don't you shut up just 1 second?
Herbie Sadler right in King Chris's face.
I want to hear. How do you expect anybody here to take you serious looking like you look? You look like a real athlete.
Amen.
Coming from a NASCAR driver, I love it. I love it.
Apparently you don't know just who we are. But there are lots of NASCAR fans in Huntsville, Alabama.
You got that right.
Testify.
I take it back. Jimmy Wang Yang is not the most country guy on this show. It's Hermie Sadler.
That's a Virginia accent.
It's deep too, son.
Very much so.
I think if I remember right, we'll see here in a minute. I think he's the one wearing that hammer hook on his belt. On his jeans. Couldn't tell him nothing.
But when you think about the timing of this, NASCAR and the ratings they were getting, and by luck, we booked Sterling 2-3 months before this. Who would have thought he would have been the number one driver? This got news. Dixie got this press. There's our buddy, good old BC.
Ryan Christopher tearing it up. He's going to cut a promo. And of course, he's getting a little help, the assist from the NASCAR guys, and they're going to up and over. Oh, damn, right on the hip. That did not feel good.
And that's something about Ronnie, the truth. Everybody knows him today as, candidly, a comedy character.
Yeah.
But straight.
He's a strong promo.
Oh, and playing a heel or being a heel, or he has such an authenticity about him. He is great.
Let's listen to Lawler.
And pick on these guys. Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't your kind come down and pick on my kind right here, right now? How about Huntsville?
Oh, yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Well, I'll tell you what. Listen, me and you, I'm challenging you. The G-Master wants you in the ring next week, and I'll have my friends Sterling, give me some dog, and Herman, give me some dog, right in my corner.
You got it.
Goddamn security was about 8 days late for Killings here, weren't they?
It happens. Those four guys that are pulling Ronnie back, I'm not sure. This might have been their first ever show as well.
The guy on the left, I assure you it is. He looked like he just wandered in.
But the NASCAR being athletes, and that it was really a hot button then, that because that's the first time that NASCAR had really gotten in the mainstream, and Fox had got the contract. And so Sterling wasn't the greatest of talkers, but Hermie has always had a gift of gab, and yes, he sure does have that deep Southern Virginia accent. But
you're choking an elderly. Why are you choking an elderly?
Oh, stop it.
You shouldn't be choking an elderly.
There's
Oh my God.
young Rudy Charles and Scott Armstrong and some more black shirt security.
Did you teach Rudy Charles how to shave and tie his tie that day? Cause he looks like he's about 15 years old right there.
Andy Engler, now of SmackDown claim to fame. But we'll talk about him a lot coming up.
By the way, a very satisfied SaveWithConrad.com customer as well.
Yeah, of course. But go ahead and do the little tee up here. Chat me up about Christian York and Joey Matthews. Because at the time, this was an established independent wrestling tag team. Just great talent. I thought they brought a lot to the table that, okay, here's some independent stars that are ready for TV.
Yeah. They were fresh off of an ECW run. Again, it was the dying days of ECW, but still they got a little bit of exposure there. So the hardcore fans were familiar with them, and obviously they had been working independents. And by the way, they look like stars. They have good gear. They're tan, which is important if you're Eric Bischoff, and they're in phenomenal shape. A lot of times guys who quote unquote aren't ready for prime time aren't always in the best of shape. And it's because in their real life, they're doing real jobs and paying real bills and have a real life. And these guys have dedicated themselves to, we're going to make it in wrestling. So they got their diet dialed in, and I mean, they look like stars. So kudos to you to get them. And then of course the Dups, fresh off of a very brief WCW stint or WWF stint. Now we've got, our sort of TNA version here. And again, that's a comedy character. It's an outfit. It's a gimmick. I get it, but I'm still more okay with this, I think, than I am the Dicks. Yeah. Hey, I want to mention real quick about, Brian, cause we just saw Brian Christopher throughout commentary, which we didn't listen to. Tenay was calling him Brian Christopher, and Ed Ferrara was calling him Brian Lawler. And Meltzer would say, apparently there was a debate about what name to give Christopher, either his old Tennessee name or his real name, Brian Lawler. They settled on Lawler. Apparently a plan was changed, and they're going to change his name from Christopher to Lawler on an upcoming show. So Tenay kept calling him Christopher since he knew about the plan change. Nobody told Ed Ferrara, so he kept calling him Lawler. And I guess both announcers thought the other one was screwing up. What do you remember about this debate on what do we call him?
Nothing. I just knew that, you'd have to ask Mike, or Don or maybe Ed. I'd probably lean more on Tenay, his recall, but who knows went on headsets, and if the truck was talking to my dad, and, my dad being longtime partners with Jerry Lawler. And when Brian started in Memphis, it was never, I went as Jeff Leonard for a short period of time when I reffed, and Brian Christopher didn't go as Brian Lawler, because it just right out of the gate, it saddles you with lesser than, as EB and you like to say. So he was Brian Christopher, but I guess we were headed in the direction to call him Brian Lawler.
Big boot there. By the way, this match doesn't go long. Meltzer would say York was on top when Fluff scooped his leg. He crouched himself and fell into the ring, where Bo pinned him holding the tights. 3 minutes, 39 seconds. After the match, Bo picked his nose and ate it. Dud. So, Meltzer, not a big fan of this.
He probably doesn't like the gimmicks, but I'd love to have heard back in the day, maybe Jason Powell or Wade Keller or a number of other wrestling journalists that reported on this. Be curious to what their comments would have been.
Oh yeah. So, I'll pull the torch up. I'll read it out exactly what Wade Keller shit all over it. Just 1 minute. I don't want you to think that old Dave's picking on you. It was universally not.
Dave doesn't pick. He's selling subscriptions, and he is a fantastic fiction writer when needed.
You just pissed off the internet. We had a good run.
I'm kidding.
We had a good run, Send your hate tweets to, I don't know, @real Jeff Jarrett. Don't send them to me. I didn't say shit wrong.
Okay. It is fascinating though, how the notes roll along. And, but I guess getting multiple sources is taboo.
No, it's not taboo. We do it all the time. I mean, last week or a few weeks ago, you had me quoting trade journals.
There you go.
Yeah. Let's see what Variety thought about the show
as well. They're right next to TMZ.
I'm sure.
But it is fascinating, how, live, when you watch a show and being there that night. As we're watching this back, so the AJ match was 6 or 7 minutes. This tag, you said, is a couple of minutes. All the matches are around 5. TO and them went less than 5.
It's rapid fire, bud.
It is, right? Yeah. It feels that way. It does feel like, pardon the pun, total nonstop action. But it seems quicker paced than even I recall from 2 weeks ago when we watched it back.
So let's briefly mention
Bill Otten at ringside.
The promotion had too much of a Southern feel on the first show to not go unnoticed. However, Vince McMahon has too much of a Northeastern feel, so the Southern feel isn't bad as long as they don't spend so much time on acts like NASCAR and Toby Keith. There's nothing wrong with catering to fans who might have felt alienated in recent years, but ECW showed that too narrow a target audience can doom your chances of success. So, he's breaking it down. Pat McNeil, who, as we see, Toby Keith firing up the band here, Pat McNeil gave the show
at the time. Go ahead. I'll let you. You'll dip out at the appropriate time.
Pat gave it a 5 out of 10.
Yep. What happened to old Pat McNeil?
He's still around.
Okay.
By the way, your dad would say the K-Crush NASCAR segment wasn't meant to be a black versus white angle, but rather based around Crush claiming NASCAR drivers weren't his type, meaning a real athlete. Quote, "It wasn't written to be a black-white thing," Jarrett said. And I think that's interesting because Wade was at least talking to your dad, and it doesn't feel like Meltzer was talking to your dad at all. But how long throughout your dad's book, he's consistently referencing Wade. Did they talk on a weekly basis, do you think?
How often? I don't know. Weekly, you'd have to say at least weekly, right? I mean, yeah. I mean, obviously I wasn't around him 24/7 by any stretch, but I'd say at least weekly and maybe more, heading into the first show.
We should mention that, the crew supposedly passed out 10,000 tickets, trying to fill this place up, and, about 1,500 showed up. Your dad would tell Wade, K-Crush is a superstar and will be treated as such. And he also talked about the more controversial figures, whether it's Buff Bagwell or Scott Hall, saying they were all 100% cooperative and professional. And he said that Ken Shamrock is willing to do anything asked of him. Quote, "Without any pep talks, everyone realized the significance of what we embarked on tonight, not just for themselves, but for the future of this industry." Is that fair to say? Everybody was on the same page? Like, shit, this could be the next big thing.
When me and the ad-free team, Dave, we went over to the Von Braun and did that walkthrough, walked in the room where I had the very first talent meeting. And look, me being...
hang on one second. Let's listen.
And you'll be sorry that you messed with the USA. 'Cause we'll put a boot in your ass. It's the American way. Hey, Uncle Sam, put your name at the top of his list. And a statue of liberty started shaking her fist. And an eagle will fly. And it's gonna be hell when you hear Mother Freedom start ringing her bell. It'll feel like a...
Wait a minute! What is Jeff Jarrett doing? Well, he got under Jackie.
I just want to add context to what we just saw right here. As a reminder, this is June of 2002. Everyone listening to this remembers what happened in September 2001. And not too terribly long after that, Toby Keith released a song where you could hear he's talking about putting a boot in your ass and you're going to pay the USA and Statue of Liberty. And it is the most patriotic song possible. And as soon as he hits the big line that people go nuts for, Jeff Jarrett interrupts it.
Speak for yourself, Jarrett.
So it's time to get the main event going. You hold your ass straight out of here. I've got a world title to win. So beat it, pal.
Jarrett, entrant number 1.
Hey, Toby, I've just got a few words for you and everybody
By the way, if you're not a country music fan, that was his number one hit, his most popular song before this one. And I know that some of our listeners are going to say, oh, it's country music horse shit. But this is a fella who was moving records at a rate that nobody really was in this era. I mean, the upper echelon. So even if it's not necessarily to your taste, it doesn't mean that it wasn't hugely successful. And you've told me before privately, and maybe even on the show a little bit, that we're really trying to cater to the Southeast and the Midwest. We don't really plan to tour to LA. We don't really plan to tour to New York. We want to cater to those more underserved markets that were heritage markets for a long time. And now our main event has started. Jeff Jarrett's going to be the first entrant, thanks to Jackie Fargo, and Buff Bagwell is number 2. This is going to be an easy payday for Buff here, is it not?
It is. And to go back on Toby, just to tell you what a megastar he was. He was a huge superstar in the 90s. By 2002, when this came along, he went into a whole different stratosphere of selling tickets and downloads and records and all that. But he had got invited to the White House, and he turned down the White House. They wanted him to sing on June 19th. The whole Peter Jennings controversy had come out and his interview and all that kind of stuff. It was national news, not just Southern, type headlines. But Toby was supposed to, got invited to the White House, and he actually turned the White House down and said, I've already committed to Jeff and to do a wrestling event in Huntsville. I can't be there. That's a nice little Easter egg that is, shows you what kind of man and friend Toby is. It's just incredible. But as Buff Bagwell gets eliminated, he did his less than 2 minutes of work, or however long, the 90 seconds of work. But Buff got a heck of a reaction, and this was the story of the Gauntlet for the Gold. Certainly, Jeff Jarrett isn't going to win the NWA title night one. Please no. Please no. Like somebody said on Twitter the other day, that Conrad, you ruined their childhood because you smartened them up.
Hey, so this is the I would normally say something funny here, but I'll just keep it to myself. Oh man, look at there. Alabama's own Lash LaRue, former WCW standout. By the way, Lash is super jacked these days. Lash looks like more like one of the Shane twins than Lash LaRue here. But yeah, you're making quick work of him, throwing him to the outside. But yeah, you look like a real life action figure. This is action figure Jeff.
Action figure Jeff.
No, I'm just saying. I mean, I'm trying to compliment you and say you look great.
I'd be happy with that. That is you referring to that Major Wrestling Pod, Brian and Zach?
Well, you had plenty of free time, right? Yeah. It's not like you're working matches all the time, so you can. I mean, this is probably the best shape of your life, no?
Up there, this is coming off of, when you think about it, the summer of no worries. I literally trained my butt off. That was to keep me sane and to give me a little justification that I'm going to go out on the lake at 2 or 3 in the afternoon. I got up and went to the gym every morning and got to eat my own cooking 7 days a week for quite some time. So yes, I was in good shape and I was, I've always been into training and exercising, but I had a lot of time to get ready.
Did you get on the gas for this show?
Conrad, you answer that for yourself. Take a look.
Of course.
Like I look just like Lex Luger. I look just like a IBF or no. What was Ica Pro? What was the?
Oh, you're talking about WBF. Vince's failed promotion.
Like a WBF superstar, don't I?
Well, listen, if I didn't ask
Wiggle.
You, seriously, my uncle's favorite wrestler. He was so excited that Norman Smiley was there.
I love Norman.
He thought the idea of getting behind a guy and doing the big wiggle was the funniest thing ever. By the way, your dad would tell the Torch that you guys brought in 80 folks for this first show, but you're going to start dwindling that down. There were around 80 people brought in for the first show. The next event on July 3rd will require only about half as many people to be brought in. He said he eventually wants to focus on just over 24 wrestlers rather than nearly 40 on the first show. And he says there weren't any pre-produced features on the first event because there wasn't enough in the budget to fly wrestlers in early to film. They will film footage for future features at the other tapings. If the first buy rate is strong enough, they'll even go to the on location in the future weeks. And Lodi missed his match. He was supposed to be here because he had neck surgery. which is a shame. But
and to say that we didn't fly men at extra expense, it was all about show one.
Yeah.
Let's keep as much as we possibly can in the ring. That, you know, the pre-tapes, and again, to put it in context, coming off of the WCW run, there are many times in the 3 hour, even a 2 hour Nitro, that there would be 30, 40, 50 shots before, at the top of every segment and at the bottom of every segment, sometimes multiples top and bottom. So the philosophy was as much of in-ring product as we can present. You saw that we had Goldilocks and 3 or 4, backstage, but tried to keep that to a bare minimum.
I want to mention we've got Apollo coming out here, who was a standout down in Puerto Rico. I mean, he looks like the next big thing. It's almost like The Rock and Sonny Siaki and Scott Hall had a baby, and here's Apollo. Maybe like even early Brian Cage vibes. I'm getting the vibe, but it just didn't work out. Why don't you think we saw more Apollo? Why didn't Apollo reach the stratosphere here in America?
Well, as time went on, and he will for sure concur with this, we've had the discussion. He wasn't always at the top of his game, had some demons here and there, but his verbal skills, he could not speak English very well. And so him having long-term to the Spanish speaking audience, specifically Puerto Rico, I've seen guys over in my time, the Road Warrior pop, quote unquote, Stone Cold's pop coming through the glass back in the day was just, it was mesmerizing to watch night after night. And there's others, Rock's music hit, Cena, back in the day, Jerry Lawler, but Apollo coming out when he was red hot in Puerto Rico was on that level. I mean, the people, he was just electrifying to the Puerto Rican audience. It was really cool to see and be a part of.
Now we see, R-Truth in there. Ron Killings is in there. So it's 3 guys in. Buff's already been eliminated, as has Lash LaRue. We're going to have an NWA World's Champion here soon enough. I want to mention a few days prior to this, there was a big NASCAR race on the 15th. You attended, you acted as a pit crew there. They got some nice little sound bites, some PR. And you even had some of the TNA Cage girls at the Alabama Motor Speedway passing out, like free tickets to come to this show. And supposedly amongst the race fans, they're most interested not in seeing Hermie or Sterling, but by God, they want to see Toby Keith. So there's something for everybody here. Not Meltzer, but Wade would also say, sources say several wrestlers have contacted the office to voice their disapproval with Francine being hired. Do you remember that? Any heat about hiring Francine?
When we've chatted offline about, I just can't put my finger on it, but I know that there was,
let me cut to it. Shane Douglas was originally considered and then not used because he drew a line in the sand and says, if she's coming, I'm not. That's the story. I've never asked Shane. I don't know. Was there heat between Shane and Francine, and that's what kept him off this first show?
There was a chatter around Francine and maybe Shane. I don't recall specifically any instance, but also that being said, people had opinions about everything.
Of course.
What are you doing there? But don't specifically remember the Shane Francine issue. I'll ask you, was there an issue in WCW or in ECW with them?
I don't remember the inner workings of their relationship. I just know that it feels like the way it was positioned as we see Wolfie D out here with a new gimmick. Are you calling him Slash here?
I believe so. And first time Father James Mitchell appeared on camera, who later on, but he was a mainstay with us, and I don't say underrated, but he's never underrated in my eyes.
Yeah.
Just a phenomenal talker.
Incredible TV performer as far as a character.
Yes. He could tell a story. And if you said, James, I need it in 60 seconds, he could do it. If you need it in 3 minutes, I can do it. Hey, James, don't say anything, but by the end of the match, tell your story. He could do it. He's a very gifted performer.
The NWA TNA website posted a story about Barnett signing with WWE and wished him the best of luck. Of course, that's after we've just talked about that he was supposed to be here. And then,
well, who said he was supposed to be here? I never, ever recall saying, what would Jim have done?
Well, I'm glad you asked because your dad said he was supposed to be here. And he said, Wade said, former NWA promoter Jim Barnett was scheduled to appear. By the way, look at this shit. This is not Scott Steiner. This is a guy that you had dress up just like Scott Steiner.
I had him do that. You know what? Because this has gone on to get some, what would you call it? Urban myth. But with the Superman, and when you look at it, you go, well, there's Big Papa. Maybe not. Maybe that was an inside job between my dad and Brian Lawler, because Del Rios and Brian Lawler were best friends to the day Brian passed away.
But clearly he's a Big Papa Pump ripoff here.
I mean, yeah, that's really talking bad about the word ripoff, because I know him as Del Rios. So, but yes.
Wait a minute. He's doing suplexes. He's got his hair and goatee.
For sure. And when I watched it back here at your house that night, because in the TNA studios, when I'm clipping stuff, we obviously didn't sit and editorialize about this, but at your house, I'm going, geez, that is Big Papa Pump, or whatever. I want to be Papa Pump.
Anyway, here's what Wade said. Former NWA promoter Jim Barnett was scheduled to appear at the first pay-per-view as a Mr. Magoo-like character, but pulled out after receiving a consulting contract from WWE. Although the hiring led some to believe that Vince McMahon was trying to sabotage the first pay-per-view. Yeah, like he would have cost him buys. Most people believe he was doing a good deed by hiring the aging Barnett. And I kind of agree. I mean, on the one hand, we could just villainize everything that Vince ever did. But it's not like people were going to say, well, I was going to order that pay-per-view, but now that Barnett ain't coming, fuck it, I'm out. That's not going to happen.
No. And Vince is
Look at this.
Oh yeah. You love it.
So what we're looking at is what is going to be one day Abyss, but he's not even known as Chris Parks here. He's got a different name. And the rumor and innuendo is you changed that name too. Tell us what we're looking at here.
Prince Justice and who later on became Abyss. And now he's a producer in the WWE as Chris Park. But he worked on the independent scene. Chris Harris up around the Cincinnati area. Roger Ruffin trained him. He worked in that area, and he was just getting work. And this showing was the first time that Dutch Mantel had saw him and saw how he could move, and a big guy. This got Abyss his job in Puerto Rico, where he went down there. They created the character, him and Dutch. And this is really the story behind the story behind the story. This set, and me and Abyss have talked about this off and on for years. This changed the trajectory of his career. Cause up until this point, he's an independent guy, and he didn't, I mean, I don't really see Prince Justice in that at all. And I'm like, what is princely or kingly or royally about you? Just drop Prince and go as Justice. Well, that happened a couple of shows, and Dutch took him to Puerto Rico. And as they say, the rest is history, because Abyss came back a different guy, very talented. He's a great athlete, but he really became seasoned in his 2 years in Puerto Rico.
Here's Conan. Boy,
listen to the pop. If you may or not be incredible pop when Conan came out. He was a global star. Certainly a WCW run, and it goes without saying, drew 30, 40, 50,000 people a couple of times in Mexico.
By the way, the matches that we're breaking down, we mentioned that Meltzer gave the first one 3 3/4. Wade gave it 2 3/4. The little fellas, do you want to guess what Wade gave them?
Asterisk, non-rated.
1 star, gave them 1 star. The Dicks, against James Storm and Psychosis, he gave them 1 star. And then the next match, which is the Dups, that got 1.5 stars, whereas it was a dud for Meltzer. And this main event, according to Wade, is 3.5 stars. Meanwhile, your boy.
What was the NBA game last night? What'd you give that rating? That game last night? The I'm kidding, Conrad.
I'm looking to see if I can find. Oh, Meltzer gave the main event 3 stars. But I get what you're saying. You don't believe in rating matches. You think it's just, you should treat it like sports and professional athletes, which is why we have little people and flying Elvises.
Full disclosure on giving, it does give a reference to what did the body of a match from, whether it's Keller or Meltzer or even a fan. It's a point of discussion. It gives you some kind of barometer. I do like that part of it. I also like the barometer of buy rates and ratings, because I don't think to this day you can have any one exact barometer, but if you collectively combine them all together, it does give viewer feedback or promoter feedback or talent feedback. It gives you some type of measuring stick. So I'm actually not knocking. That may have come across as that I'm completely opposed. I'm just having a little fun with you.
By the way, Joel Gertner has come out here and cut a 3-minute promo, and we've shown him the entire time, totally ignoring everything that happened in the ring. So I'm not faulting Joel for that. I'm asking, who put this match together, and why are they fucking stupid?
Oh, wow. That's a heavy opinion.
Well, I'm just saying, by the way, the fella coming out here as part of the Rainbow Express on the right, who you remember as Kwee-Wee, his name is Bruce. And it's printed in black and white in the torch that this is a rib on Bruce Pritchard, who both the Jarretts have clashed with during their WWF stints. So I asked you that in person and you said, no. And then Wade reported it as fact, which means your dad said, yep.
Gotta be. Right?
Of course. Anyway, why would you not have Joel? He needed whoever he was introducing should have been who you were going to be wrestling first. That way we didn't have to just see you standing in the ring, and he could have still got his shit in. But as it is, we got 8 guys beating the shit out of each other, but we're not going to show it. We're going to show skinny Joel Gertner singing dirty limericks.
That's why they call it sports entertainment. Sometimes we can treat it like a sport. Sometimes we can treat it like an entertainment. Sometimes we can treat it like a hybrid. If you would have had him against me, then it'd be 2 heels. So that wouldn't have got the desired reaction either. I get it. I also think we're splitting hairs a little bit, but I totally, 8 guys are in the ring and the match is ongoing. And it's like we called timeout in the play.
Well, listen, I know we're not there production wise, but would have been fine to show the action in the big screen and show
big screen. What budget are you on? I'm kidding. We had them.
You know what I mean? And Gertner in the little picture in a picture deal. By the way, I'm curious why you didn't promote Rick Steiner in terms of the flyers when you guys were promoting the show. It was you, Ken Shamrock, Scott Hall, and Francine.
We didn't get confirmation on Rick Steiner.
Okay.
There's a couple of guys.
Gosh, hell of a bump from Abyss. I wonder he didn't break his fucking forearm.
Yeah. Abyss could work from day one. He's so athletic. But Conan too. Did we advertise Conan? There were a couple of names that as the weeks went up, I also know that Conan and me were like, can you come on board? He's got the AAA thing, look, we couldn't advertise the same names every show, every week moving forward, but I'm almost positive Robbie was a late addition. Rick Steiner was a late addition.
So here's what your boy, you said, I wonder what Jason Powell said. And here comes Malice, the former Wall.
Oh, Malice. What a talent. Conrad, were you a fan of Malice?
No.
Okay.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't dislike him, but it was never like, oh shit, Malice is on. I got to watch.
I'm not saying that. The building blocks. He had all the tools.
Oh, no. I would, if I were you, he would have been on the roster. 100%. I agree.
Okay. I just wondered because
but like, I don't have a Malice t-shirt in my drawer is what I mean. So look, but I know you sleep under a Jason Powell blanket cause you've mentioned it a few times.
Oh, we got a little red ass Conrad.
No, here we go. The main problem I had with this show was it felt too much like WCW. Everything from Mike Tenay to the corny gimmicks, to the look of the ring and set, to the corny gimmicks, to the cheap and poorly mixed music, to the corny gimmicks, to too much Jeff Jarrett, to the, did I mention corny gimmicks? The idea behind the Johnsons is that Mortimer Plumtree is forcing them to wear those outfits against their will, but what excuse do the Flying Elvises have? The Cruiserweight action was indeed nonstop, but I didn't know that dressing up 3 talented wrestlers in matching Elvis costumes is a message any promotion should send during its very first match. And speaking of the Johnsons, I never thought I'd say this, but they should have gone with the dickhead masks after all, because that gimmick was beyond bad. Speaking of beyond bad, Ed Ferreira and Don West were awful. I'm talking Lee Marshall, Mongo McMichael awful. And just when I thought the Johnsons tag team was the lamest gimmick since the Ding Dongs, out walked the Dupps with the fingers up their noses, doing a gimmick so cartoonish that David McLean wouldn't touch it. Notes, I was starting to believe that Jeff Jarrett had packed on a few pounds, but then Lash LaRue walked out and made him look like Francine, who looked as if he hadn't eaten or she hadn't eaten since one of her ECW checks cleared, et cetera, et cetera. He's eating the show up. So you wanted to know, since you thought Meltzer was critical, you thought Jason Powell would carry your water. He's shitting all over it.
I did not say carry my water.
And here comes Scott Hall cleaning house as he should. Apollo standing up top for 8 minutes and then just jumps down, forearm to the face to Malice.
A little inexperienced there on Apollo in his first ever gauntlet for the gold
I was
match.
waiting on him to do like some flippity do there or something.
A little inexperience. Again, we're producing 4 hours of content on our first outing. And so, you know, lots of moving parts that went, and especially laying out a gauntlet match. It's not easy.
Who did it? Who did it?
Who would have? I know Scott Armstrong probably helped me organize it. I laid it out in broad strokes. Dutch would have helped. I'm sure my father would have helped. I'm not exactly sure the agents, but you know, with 20 guys, there was a lot of us that got together on this, on the eliminations and the format, if you will, of the match layout.
Let me ask you something. Wade would write a commentary. He said, Stephanie McMahon and Brian Grewitz, take note. Jerry Jarrett successfully produced a 2-hour wrestling show without anybody having to act in an unnatural way backstage. Oh, here we go. Check it out. Here comes Toby Keith. This is a big moment. I feel like we should track it.
But he's making himself an entrant. What is he doing in there? He has no business in there. Right in the face of Jeff Jarrett. What is this? Is Toby Keith? Has Jarrett up? What is this? With a suplex. Toby Keith just suplexed Jeff Jarrett. He has just become my favorite country western superstar. He is the angry American. Toby Keith should be banned from this building. He should be banned from this broadcast. He has no business. Jarrett has been eliminated. Toby Keith and Scott Hall just eliminated.
And all of our dreams came true. You weren't going to ruin another promotion by being world champion.
There you go. Made you happy, Conrad. Made that 19-year-old or 21-year-old Conrad Thompson on the 9th row just shouting for glee.
I was 20. I was about to turn 21, and I wish I could have bought a beer legally to celebrate. Anyway, the compliment was, without anybody having to act in an unnatural way backstage while cameras were present. What I mean is, he didn't have wrestlers making secret plans about covert actions in front of a freaking camera. So the idea is he likes that you're not insulting the audience's intelligence, but we got wrestling dicks. Wade gave the show a 6.5. Your boy Bruce Mitchell gave it a 6. And he says, no chairs, no walking garbage wrestling, no long-winded owners lecturing me about the business that made them, no tables or guitars or slap nuts or worksheet BS made for a great relief. This was a wrestling show and there's not a damn thing wrong with that. So he was pretty complimentary, except Toby Keith, except for that awful song ABC rightfully rejected, did a nice job acting tough towards Jarrett, blah, blah, blah. Oh, here comes the Vampire Warrior, your boy, David Heath, Gangrel.
Love Dave.
Chat me up though. The Toby Keith thing is what's going to get the most press out of this, right?
Yeah. And a little footnote. I was texting with a buddy of mine, JB, or Ash, over the weekend. And he brought up a fact, Conrad, this is pretty crazy, but I recalled it instantly, but on our Summer of No Worries, Jeremy recalls me laying out, because I had a friendship with Toby and I said, look, he's red hot. How do you like me now? And all this. I said, I'm going to have him suplex me vertical. And I said, it'll be a shot that we can circulate and Monterey Peninsula artists on. Anyway, that was 6-9 months before that night happened that I called that shot. But it was by design to get publicity 100%. I'll say the t-shirt 100% to get publicity because Toby was red hot. And look, we didn't know where that was going to go. Could me and Toby eventually work a one-on-one match? Toby played, semi-pro football. He worked in the oil rigs before he exploded on the scene. He's an athlete. So my hopes were maybe one day we could have a single match or keep Toby involved from the fringe. Toby's done stuff over the years with, WWF, WWE, so Toby's been around and I always look at when I see a photo of Toby and I think to 2013, which we'll get to in my world, what if that transaction would have gone through? But back to our regular scheduled programming.
Crowbar doing his thing out here. Friend of the show. I know he's a listener. He's back, by the way. He's wrestling again.
Yep. And Chris Harris came in right before that. And who would have thought that, James Storm and Chris Harris would have gone on to be, arguably, certainly one of the top 2-3 teams, in TNA history,
America's Most Wanted, baby.
It's really cool to see Chris come out, always in good shape, and had a good run, but that was his first appearance, with us.
So talk me through your experience. How'd you sleep the night before? I mean, you've got your whole life savings bet on this show.
There was so many moving parts, Conrad. And, just recently I went back and watched on Netflix, the Richard Scrushy story.
Yep.
That documentary. I was just thinking through, look, and you can relate to this, it being in business. Yes, I wanted to, at the end of the day, as Toby says, earn our fans one at a time. And the talent I wanted to put on a show, and working with my father and working with Keith Mitchell and just putting together, we'll call it the whole ball of wax. But I really, really, really wanted this to be a success for Richard. I mean, yeah, I put my money up. That's my money.
Yeah.
Somebody else bet on me. I really wanted the show. There's Steve Carino as he's walking down the aisle, but I really wanted this show to come off and be super successful. Of course, like I said, buy rates and production and everything that goes with the obvious. But I really wanted to do the show. I wanted the show come off without a hitch, where Richard and his team at Health South could say, okay, we're the investment. We're going to get our money back and then some.
I realize this is, tomato, or maybe it's just preference. But when you got guys like Scott Hall and you got Lawler and you got Carino, these are known, established to the audience characters. And instead they're all jammed into the main event, where maybe there's too many stars to focus on any one. And so you really only have a quarter of the show dedicated to the star power, which is all loaded in the main event. The rest of the card is a bunch of guys you're trying to establish and quote unquote make. In hindsight, if you had to do over again, would you have sprinkled a little more star power or established names throughout the undercard? Or did you think that this is the way it should have been? I only ask because we had a booking philosophy discussion a few weeks ago where your dad talked about, you don't have a featured talent in the opening segment. You don't have a top talent in the first segment, blah, blah, blah. Is that old school wrestling? And did you think in hindsight we needed more quote unquote name talent underneath?
Can you I want to make sure I understand your question. Should we have,
all right. Rick Steiner was in there for 90 seconds. Buff Bagwell's in there for 90 seconds.
Yeah.
You got former ECW world champion Steve Carino. He's here almost as a throwaway. There's a lot of recognizable talent if you're a wrestling fan, but instead we're going to invest time in James Storm, who by the way, worked out. Great call. Not knocking it. Flying Elvises. Again, I understand it's a different type of match. You're trying to establish the other team too. Yeah. But we got little guys. And then we had that whole tag match with, the Dups, and the one with the Dicks. And it just feels like, to me, maybe we sprinkle a little more star power in there and throw some of these guys that we're trying to establish in this match.
I got you now. I wanted the main event to be a star-studded, no lulls, 20 guys coming out. You can't have 20 straight stars, but not really letting quote unquote the people ever settle into the main event and sit back. I wanted to there's Carino, there's this talent, there's that talent, to keep the ball rolling. I wanted to expose, obviously we've already covered that. I wanted to come out of the gate with the X Division. It's an alternative. Again, it's a 2-hour commercial free starting point. I did, and I've thought about this a lot over the last month that we've gone through this journey on my world, is that first episode, I wanted to come out of the gate, and I don't want to just say just a variety show, but as strong as possible that no, we're not WCW. No, we're not ECW.
We're not just this or just that. Don't box us in. Let us be everything.
Well, create our own niche. And if you saw in the opening of this show, from the very first show, people were chanting TNA. Yeah. And I thought that was cool. That was a takeaway of the night that, okay, the name and the branding of it. And again, the emotional investment. You have to have an emotional investment. The things I've learned over the last 19 years or the last 35 years, but they continue to grow every day. It's that emotional connection and investment, whether it's a heel, whether it's a babyface, or whether it's a brand. If there's not that emotional connection, you have nothing.
We see a lot of talent in the ring right now, starting to get down to the nitty gritty. We've only got about 12 minutes left in the broadcast. Just to recap, we got Shamrock in there. Oh, Carino's going out. Brian Christopher just eliminated him. King of Old School is gone. It's Scott Hall, Malice, Apollo, Brian Christopher, and Ken Shamrock. And we're going to have a new world's champion here momentarily. I wanted to ask too, a quick question about what you're feeling after the show. I mean, at this point, you're out of the match, but you're not out of the show. You're in the back, I assume, in whatever you're calling the gorilla position, watching on a monitor.
I'm getting ready for the second episode. When I went through the curtain, knowing that the following week, me and Scott are in a match, that's the thing about producing and wearing multiple hats. You never say, hey, I'm going to sit over there and sit back. I'm going to get me a water and just relax for a minute. That was an impossibility. So do you mean after this episode or at the very end of the night?
I mean, after this episode, obviously the pressure of being live with satellite time, and, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression, blah, blah, blah.
I felt comfortable as each segment went along. Again, I've since I was 15, I've been around live television in Memphis, Tennessee, and know that if you have a really stinking segment, and believe me, at Memphis TV, you talk about having some stinking segments. That's just the nature of the beast.
So the match has changed, guys. Now it's down to the last two. It's Malice versus Ken Shamrock, and Ricky Steamboat is your referee. So Ricky's got his referee stripes on, his zebra stripes on, and he's now going to main event this singles match. And again, Father Mitchell is not only supporting Slash, but also Malice. So he's in the corner of Malice now, giving him some last minute advice. And the winner of this match, as they were the final two members of the gauntlet, is going to become the NWA World Champion. Why was Malice the right guy for Ken here?
We wanted to build up Malice and have him a future contender. And Kenny got that real quick and was actually very excited. He saw where you're going. And to rewind just a little bit, we got it down to the final four. Apollo could have been a future champion. We wanted to tell that story, knowing that we could have switched him heel and put him with a mouthpiece. And then obviously Scott Hall, lately, just recently online, I think there was a quote that I must have said or did say about Scott, why he was never a world champion. Scott had more than every tool in the toolbox to be a world champion. So when it got down to those four, but we wanted to put Kenny over Strong. James Mitchell was going to be a mouthpiece moving forward, a good alignment. But I'm going to go back to Jerry Toot, Malice. He is at this stage of his career, he just needed a little more seasoning, but he had a good look. He was going back and forth to Japan. He wanted it. He loved this business, man. God rest his soul. But he was going to be in the world title hunt for weeks to come.
Let's talk about the main event here. And as we're coming down, who's like on headsets running, I don't know anything about producing pay-per-view, but I've always been told or been under the impression you only have X number of satellite time. You only have so much time, so many minutes, and then it's done. Was there a rule of thumb going into this? I think the phrase is back timing. Who's back timing the show and making sure that you're hitting the marks if you're not doing it?
Well, Bob Ryder and my dad, both. And then at the end of the day, Keith Mitchell sits in that truck and for our 2-hour shows. And this is where it got tricky. And this is another thing in the in-demand discussions that got fascinating that, on the, it's that East Coast, West Coast right now, West Coast, that came on 5 p.m, but they had an immediate replay. Those were built into the contracts. Later, we got to a point where, that became routine, but in the negotiations and getting replays, but we had 1 hour and 58 minutes of satellite time. So that gave Master Control 2 minutes to get it ready to do the replay. So Keith Mitchell was, the buck stopped with him. Cool Hand Luke sitting in the driver's seat that would get us in and out. But as far as communicating with the referee, and I don't believe, does Ricky have an IFB in his ear? I'm not sure. But, you have cameramen at ringside. You have referees calling times. We're in a position, and Kenny's season, he knew that, a time frame that he had to go.
It's just, it's interesting to look back at this and figure out all the pressure that you must have been under, especially since, as Meltzer said, the so-called full support of the cable industry turned out to be something less. After NWA TNA officials were under the impression they had a deal last week with the clearance of the Dish Network, it turned out not to be the case, leaving their potential universe in the 35 to 40 million range. The losses of most of the Canadian systems, Cablevision and Dish Network, is a major blow for a group that needs 50,000 buys per week to break even, unless they get a corporate sponsor, which they've yet to land. So it's frustrating to know that Canada, who is this big, wrestling crazed country, they aren't going to be able to see this one. But your dad, would be quoted as saying that the estimate was very encouraging, that he had been in talks with the folks at In Demand. And he says, quote, he said the representatives from In Demand who were at the event told him the early reports from cable companies were that the buy rate was encouraging. Quote, overwhelming success was the language they used, but we really won't know anything until Friday. He said he still doesn't believe fewer than 50,000 will have ordered it. But if that's their break even and starting point from there. So yeah, we're going to talk about this a lot next week, as I guess now is as good a time of any to mention. The next week, the subject matter is going to be the Jay Hossman story, and we're calling it, He Lied to Us. And boy, it is an interesting story that you don't want to miss. Whew. I just can't imagine the pressure you're under, dude, knowing, well, I have all my personal net worth involved in this, and we sold less than 500 tickets, and the fucking ring broke right before we went live. And, but they tell us we're getting good pay-per-view numbers, and you keep operating under that premise. And then you realize, well, that's not exactly the case. How about Steamboat adjusting Shamrock to get him in position right there? Did you see that?
Yes, I did. Ricky knows what he's doing,
but it was so subtle. He grabbed his wrist and just adjusted him just a little bit, like, hey kid, come over here.
And, I think I've discussed it on here before, but my father's favorite NWA world champion was Dory Funk Jr.
Yeah.
And if I had to pick one, mine would have been Ricky Steamboat. I love Flair, but Ricky, he was that babyface WrestleMania 3. And, the first 7 years of my career, I was a babyface. So seeing Ricky do this and how it went down. And, this is the first time we tried the concept. It's a Royal Rumble, but look, you can't call it a Royal Rumble. You need to have different rules. So our rule was, when it gets down to 2 in the Royal Rumble, you have a match and you slide in a referee so you can actually have a pinfall submission or over the top. And I always wanted to give them a pinfall. So a little closure, a little different. We were the alternative. And Kenny, there it is, as he crowned the first NWA TNA champion. And so having Steamboat do it was a pretty cool moment, personally for me. But from a business perspective, this is sort of the vision that you have a UFC star / Kenny could go and we are carrying on the lineage of that title that started in 1905.
And it's a quote unquote legitimate badass. The idea being, as silly as it sounds, once upon a time, people used to fantasy book stuff and they would say, what if this guy fought that guy for real? Now I know that sounds silly, but that's what wrestling fans do, right? We're fight fans, or we pretend to be. So if this guy fought that guy, so I don't give a damn what promotion you got over in Japan or, whatever's happening here in the WWF in June of 2002, whoever it is, Ken Shamrock could probably kick the shit out of him. Just saying.
That's Kenny. And, here, at this point, the legends were supposed to get up in the ring. Conrad, I don't know if we talked about it this night, cause it was getting late, but Dory and Harley and Bullet, see, they're outside the ring. They never got up in the ring to congratulate him. That was the story to be told. But again, first show, communication, lots of balls in the air. You're going to let some drop. But the story was, that beauty shot of Kenny surrounded by the legends that were in the original in-ring. You follow me, Conrad?
Yes, sir. What do you think of the setup here, the shot with the announcers? Did you like it at ringside as opposed to?
Sorry to cut you off, but no, the desk at ringside in the context. Yes, I thought,
let's track it.
Back, we moved it away.
It's Toby Keith. It's Toby Keith as well. Toby Keith. They've got security holding Toby Keith back and Jackie Fargo.
So you got to have a tease for next week. So you got to show Toby Keith one more time just to set the stage, because at this point, Jeff, the hay is in the barn as far as getting their money this week. We got it, but now we got to convince them. You got to come out of pocket for $10 next week, right?
Exactly. And, I could remember, can we just let the Kenny moment sink in? And had we not going the episodic nature the following week, of course we would have. But there it is, the teaser of me and Toby and Scott Hall the following week. And early in the show, we did the lingerie battle royal. And, here I come out and I'm going to, complain about everything that I complained earlier. In essence, continue the episodic nature, which is the very core of our industry.
Man, I'll tell you, whoever was helping you cycle on and cycle off was doing a good job. You're in good shape here, bud.
That is is that like a backhanded compliment?
No, I just know that it irritates you. So now I know I'm just going to do. That's what I do. By the way, I want to remind everybody as Jeff Jarrett's beating up old people. Some things never change.
At least male.
If you ever try to do a meet and greet at a nursing home, I ain't going. I'm just letting you know now. There's going to be paperwork involved. I ain't going. The actual show itself, as we see Jackie Fargo coming down drunk with Mr. Royal, boy, these are the worst security guys I've ever seen. Anyway,
but I like their shirts. I like their NWA TNA shirts on that we got mass printed at the last minute. That's another little Easter egg that, hey, we got to have shirts. What are they wear? And I can, when you think back of the Nitro days and that security at ringside, and they look, Doug Dillinger and crew, they looked uniform. They weren't rent-a-cops. They were in-house security. And I say in-house WCW security, but Toby coming down and Scott Hall, this is all we wanted to go off the air of me and Scott mixing it up. Tune in next week and see what happens.
I love the way Scott Hall throws punches and sells punches. And there you see J Sports and Entertainment. There's the copyright notice. So there it is. Shout out to Impact Wrestling for letting everybody watch this one for free. We greatly appreciate it. It's over on YouTube if you didn't watch it with us, or maybe you want to watch it later. But boy, we got to talk a little bit more about Cheeks. I think he's recently passed away. It's a real person named Mike Staples, but he wrestled as Cheeks. Very large African-American fellow, 450, 500 pounds, whatever. And he's going to wrestle Frank Parker, get a win over Frank Parker. And then Apollo is going to defeat David Young. And in your dad's book, he says that it was Cheeks' match that broke the ring, but Meltzer says it was Apollo's. I feel like Cheeks has been blamed forever. But do you remember the dark match order that night? Was it Cheeks first and then Apollo and David Young?
It was. And I'll tell you why. And it's funny how, oh boy, here we go. How in the world, never mind, how Meltzer can say it was Apollo and David Young. It's completely fictitious. But obviously he wasn't there, but he got a report.
You got to get excited about saving people all those dollars. They can limousine ride and jet fly now with that extra cash.
And they can style and profile with a quick 10-minute phone call right now to 425-0105.
That's 425-0105. Woo!
SaveWithConrad.com.
That it was, but it was Cheeks, and he was legendary for several years. I mean, he was a running joke in production meetings. And I'll say a punchline because look, he didn't mean to, but Cheeks, the big fellow that he was,
broke the ring.
And the reason we didn't want to start with Cheeks. And I don't know if it was my dad that wanted to give Cheeks a look at. I really don't. I feel like that, but I can't 100% confirm in my brain. But Apollo and David Young, as they say, a heck of a hand, and could start the night off. And, for those that don't know, when you have a dark match, the reason you have a dark match, and I'm assuming my world listeners know, but if you don't know, it is a dark match for not so much really to warm the crowd up. That's way down the list of priorities. It's to get levels. It's to get white balance. It's to get the truck. It's to get everybody. It's like a quick preseason game to get communication going, make sure everybody's headsets are working, cameras are working, feeds are working. You're talking to the satellite. Are you seeing this or not? All those types of things to make sure that you're hitting on all cylinders from a transmission, just everything. And so, I think our standard was at least always have one dark match, if not two. But it was definitely Cheeks. And he certainly got the brunt of the jokes over the years. God rest his soul.
So let's talk about what Meltzer wrote about the pay-per-view buys. At press time, company officials were given a number by In Demand, which was well in excess of the needed 50,000 buys, with a claim of 80,000. But early numbers mean nothing, as they almost uniformly turn out to be much higher than the final number turns out to be. The first number In Demand gave for the WWA show was 40,000 buys, but the real number turned out to be 15,000. Both WWE officials have always gone under the assumption that any cable number released earlier than maybe 2 months out from showtime usually ends up being so far off it's not even worth talking seriously. The DirecTV number, which usually comes out within a week or two, is usually accurate as it relates to them. So we're going to talk a lot more about pay-per-view numbers next week as we talk about Jay Hassman and the whole he lied to us thing. But I'm curious what you think of the show watching it back now, not just first, but second. This is the second time you've watched it back. The readers of the Wrestling Observer actually enjoyed it. They gave it 61.2% thumbs up, 20.6% thumbs in the middle, and 18.2% thumbs down. Watching it back, and I know nobody's more critical of your stuff than you are your own stuff, and I know you're your own worst critic, but what'd you think watching this back? It's easy for you to pick it apart, but overall, just simple. Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs in the middle.
Thumbs in the middle. The reason I say that is, and again, you're asking me 19 years and a few days later, how much we improved across the board. So coming out of the gate, I'll give myself a pass, a hall pass, so to speak. But knowing how much better we got as far as timing, and look, we were never perfect, and we never had the resources to have, a dedicated audio truck like WWE has, or whatever it may be. We never had unlimited budgets, but how we were legitimately the little engine that could, and got a little bit better and a little bit better. But coming out of the gate for a first effort, knowing the PR beats that we wanted out of it with the NASCAR folks and with Toby Keith and Ken Shamrock winning the title and starting with AJ and tearing the house down with that and giving them a variety, the Dupps and the Johnsons and T.O. and just a potpourri of wrestling, if you will. But the takeaways, and you really only remember the main event in shows most of the time. Of course, you can't just give everything a throwaway like sometimes MMA and boxing does, because we are that form of entertainment that you better give them a good show. But for the most part, I'll give it a mild thumbs up, but not overwhelming. But before first effort, I just, watching it back from Keith Mitchell on down to the talent, every member, I think in so many different ways we pulled together and really worked our ass off for the fans to give it a really good first effort.
Couple quick questions, then we'll wrap this one up. Pretty big deal happening on the other side. Steve Austin walked out on the company, and the company immediately went and buried him. The Rock, Austin, JR. I mean, not Austin, but The Rock, Vince McMahon, JR. Everybody's burying Austin.
The Rock buried him?
Oh yeah, on TV, big time. It's okay. That's not to say that, I know it's stupid considering your relationship and his relationship with your dad and you, but does anybody ever raise their hand and say, hey, what if we just gave a call? Because there's not one, but two big stars. I mean, DDP announced his retirement on June 11th. He's only 46 years old. And it just feels like if you wanted to stir up some controversy, maybe there could have been an opportunity to flirt with or do something. Was any of that even discussed, or did you guys realize, boy, that's in another stratosphere of our economics? And there is the old, it takes money to make money, and there's no bad idea in a brainstorming session. Does anybody ever even broach the subject?
And I probably acted like more of an authority than I probably, and what I recall is legally, I had been down that road in 95, 96, in 97, 98, 99, and into this. Legally, Steve would not be cleared. Period. It's not even a conversation starter. Vince is not letting him, I don't recall rock bearing him, but Vince, from a legal point of view, even if he didn't have it like a clear runway.
Here's what I mean. I don't mean to infer that we're going to bring him in necessarily. Oh. I'm just saying there was once a Memphis thing. And again, it was not your dad's promotion. It was Savage's family, the Poffos, where they would come down and Jerry Lawler, I dare you, blah, blah, blah. Is there a thought to, well, he ain't coming out up there and he's the hot topic. What if we just start issuing open challenges and it's a surprise and it's somebody else? And I'm not saying that's good booking or that's creative. I'm just saying it existed in Memphis before. These sort of grandstand challenges. And not too far before this, we saw Goldberg and Austin do one with each other on the Tonight Show. We also saw the whole Vince McMahon, Eric Bischoff thing. I'm challenging you to a fight. I'm going to knock you out at Slamboree, that type deal. Was there any sort of attitude with you or Vince where somebody says, hey, what if?
No, I don't recall that. No.
Real quick. The Vince Russo thing, since I brought him up, you gave him credit for a lot of the different ideas here, at least threw his name around. I know he was flirting with you and helping a little bit. And then he took the job with Vince McMahon. He's only there for a cup of coffee. And then he ultimately opts. He doesn't get fired. He quits and comes to work with you guys. But I think he didn't have the most pleasant welcoming party up there. So he's quickly looking for a place to land, and it winds up being TNA for less money. And he's going to have to travel to the shows as opposed to being a consultant from home, which is where I think the WWF deal was headed. But are you excited that Russo's back, or are you just sort of like, who cares? If he wants to be here, cool. If not, I still got a show to do. I'm all in. I'm totally invested. I'm just trying to gauge where you were with Russo here on the heels of this first show.
I mean, you saying coming out of it, I'm trying to get the time frame, because didn't he go to Vince after the first show? When did that happen?
Before.
And I don't recall exactly, but regardless, sure. I knew he brought the entertainment component, and he thought that almost exclusively, entertainment. Dutch, on the other hand, more of, and I don't want to call Dutch traditional, but it is more of a wrestling mindset, thinking long-term booking, personal issues, set the heat, episodic nature, build to a payoff, give it to them, and then continue your story. So Dutch and Vince always had a good yin and the yang to their storytelling. So it wasn't like I was like, take it or leave it. No, I welcomed him.
He's back for about 2 weeks, allegedly, according to the rumor and innuendo. His idea he pitched was, hey, let's restart the WCW invasion with Bill Goldberg, Scott Steiner, Eric Bischoff, and Bret Hart, none of whom were under contract. That did not go well, apparently, according to the legend. And I believe there's a rumor, or the narrative is out there, that Stephanie McMahon had a phone call with him. He felt disrespected, so he was willing to take a little less money and come work with you guys. I think his deal with the WWF at the time was like $150 or $125, depending on who you believe. And he was mostly going to be working at home, but now he's going to come in with you guys for like $100,000 a year. And I don't know. I'm just fascinated with, this is one of your supposed best friends, and he's hokey pokey a little bit about, I'm in, I'm out, I'm in. And it feels like no matter what, you're just welcoming him in. Am I saying that wrong?
I don't think you're saying it completely inaccurate, but it's business, but also new, like a Scott Steiner, that we were going to do in 2002 when we launched, best case scenario, 26 shows, 26 live events. That was the original plan until everything started flipping upside down. So 26 or 52 live events, not full-time work for anybody. Jerry, Malice, he was really had dug into getting his Japan deal. I knew we were going to have limited dates on him, limited dates on Shamrock. He was going to fight, limited dates basically on everybody. So Vince, being whether he was a friend or not, getting him full-time or whatever it may be, but him also, I knew the run he had with Vince, and I knew how bad the WCW, no matter whose you want to point fingers at, Vince Russo's WCW run certainly didn't end on a high note. So if he could go make more money, I always subscribe to the philosophy. You want to be here, great. If you don't, go.
Yeah. And I think that's a healthy attitude to take towards business. I'm just, intrigued, I guess, with the relationship, because it does feel like, again, I know I've said it a lot, but you've got every nickel you've got invested in this. So it has to be successful. That's not negotiable for you. You're going to put everything into it, and we're going to continue to talk about that. But the first episode is in the books, and I know that we're sort of skipping ahead, but we're not going to actually cover episode 2. We might actually do something for adfreeshows.com, but we're not going to do a whole episode on it. But you did do that same night. Cheeks would beat Frank Parker. No, let me back that up.
That's the dark matches. But on to that note, that whether it was Russo, whether it was Malice, whether it was Shamrock, maybe again, going back to my delusional optimism, I didn't think any one person was mandatory, and you allude to my personal money was on the line, the screw sheet situation. I didn't think any one personnel what was mandatory for success by any means.
Next week, Joel Gertner is going to talk about how the Rainbow Express should be respected for their in-ring work and not made fun of for what they may do after the matches. He said in the ring, they're all business. Then we see Chris Harris and James Storm team together to beat the Rainbow Express, which is Lenny and Bruce, in 4 minutes and 50 seconds. And instead of tagging each other in and out, they would kiss each other's hands to tag in and out. Apollo beat David Young, who had Bobcat with him, one of the masters of the Spine Buster, in 5.5 minutes. Scott Hall, who had Toby Keith and Jackie Fargo with him, would beat Jeff Jarrett. Brian Christopher is going to beat K Crush in 4 minutes and 50 seconds. Of course, Sterling and Hermie are in his corner. Taylor's going to win the Lingerie Battle Royal. Ricky Steamboat is going to interview Ken Shamrock about winning the NWA World Title. Of course, Jim Mitchell is going to interrupt, and we're laying the gauntlet down. Slash is going to come out, and eventually Malice jumps Shamrock. So it looks like there's a hot issue now with Father Mitchell, Stable, and Shamrock. And then in our main event, AJ Styles would defeat Jerry Lynn, Psychosis, and Low Key to win the X title in 25 minutes and 58 seconds. It would be called the best match on the show by far. So that's what ends our Huntsville experiment, sort of night 1, although it winds up being week 1 and week 2. Do you stay overnight in Huntsville or you head back home to Nashville?
Went to the hotel, had a couple of cocktails, but thanked everybody, did the rounds. And then, we didn't get out of the building till, I want to say, well after midnight, cause we had to do the loadout, and I'm going to say the loadout. It's not just, hey guys, shower and hit the road. You got the lights, the camera, the ring, everything. And I think Jeremy actually had gone over to the hotel, and I stayed around the loadout, but we had to be in Nashville the next morning, as you know, 2 hours away, but into the post-production facility to edit the show, because episode 2 was live to tape. Obviously, we had to polish that show up. There's only so much you can do in that scenario, but we had to get it ready. So hung around, said goodbyes, and then we headed back in the middle of the night.
Well, we're going to head back in the middle of the night next week to talk about the Jay Hassman story, but don't worry. If you're getting tired of our TNA talk, in 2 weeks, we'll be back talking all things Hulk Hogan from Bash at the Beach 2000. We'll briefly talk a little bit about how the Tennessee Titans saved TNA. I know it sounds crazy, but bear with me. And then we'll wind up the month of July where we talk about In Your House 2. And when Jeff walked out on Vince McMahon the first time, because it happened a lot. And then of course we'll talk about when he walked into the WWF on the last week of July. It's his WWF debut. We're going to call that one, Ain't I Great? Jeff, this is your first watch along. You and I have done several shows together at this point. What'd you think? Fan of the watch along format? Overwhelmed? Drinking water out of a fire hydrant? Chat me up.
I'll get better. I apologize for my stutter start. It's a little bit overwhelming, and there's, as you know, I like to get granular.
Yes, I do too.
I do. I want to give the listeners that have subscribed and liked and dove in head first on this journey. I think there's some unique stories and Easter eggs and context, but doing a watch along, you can't pump the brakes. You just keep it rolling right along. So I'll get better in the format, hopefully. But I do enjoy it. It's a journey, and it's fun to watch it back and see all those different kind of things. But something you just nailed on that to me jumped off the page. The X Division title match went 25 minutes. You just called the time on that?
Yeah.
On episode 2. That sort of goes again to the mindset of where we were headed. Yes, we're going to have TO, and yes, we're going to have the Laundry Battle Royal and this and that. But the gauntlet went by design, 25 minutes of in-ring product. And of course we did have Toby, but that's to set up something. But, we gave them an in-ring product that as time went on, I became more and more proud of, because we were the alternative.
And I hope you guys enjoy having an alternative for your podcast enjoyment. We have had a lot of fun producing My World with Jeff Jarrett, and we're going to keep the fun going next week. If you haven't already, please check out adfreeshows.com. I think you'll be pleased to find that there's an overwhelming amount of content, not just from Jeff and myself, but all of my podcasts with Eric Bischoff and Tony Schiavone and Jim Ross and Bruce Pritchard, Darn Anderson and Kurt Angle, and a whole lot more, including pretty regular bonus features with Rebel from TNA and Dave Penzer and Gerald Briscoe and Mike Chioda, and on and on and on. More content than you can shake a stick at. And Jeff, this is the last time you and I are going to record while I am in my 30s. I'll turn 40 before our next episode airs. And to celebrate me turning 40, the guys over at adfreeshows.com, Evan and Dave and the whole troop, they've put together 40 for 40. So we will have 40 different pieces of content go live on June 27th. So if you haven't already, check out adfreeshows.com. I don't mean there's 40 new pieces of content this month. I don't mean there's 40 new pieces of content this week. I mean, there's 40 new pieces of content going up on June 27th. So check it out. It's all that and a bag of chips. I think you'll be happy with it. A report came out that we have the most subscribers of any wrestling Patreon. We already knew that, and we greatly appreciate you guys and all of your support. But I want you to see what all the fuss is about. You get all the shows early and ad free for $9.99. All the bonus content comes your way for $29.99, including a bunch of interactive experiences that you want to take a look at. And then, man, in a few short weeks, it feels like me and you are going to be in Chicago with Jim Ross and Arn Anderson and Tony Schiavone and Eric Bischoff. It's going to be an in-person experience. We're going to make a weekend of it, dude.
I love it. I'm excited about that. And I saw that report come out as well. So, Podfather, I'll just say this. They don't call you the Podfather, nothing. You got it rolling along. But I have had many people, again, I'll go back to my gym buddies, that they have been brand new to ad free and just sort of surfing around, and they're quite overwhelmed.
Yep.
That's the word. They're just like, wow, how does all this make sense? And I said, don't ask me, ask Conrad. How do you do it for $9.99 or $29.99, whatever it is? It's very cool. It's very great to be a part of it.
A lot of content, a lot of fun, and a lot of reasons to sign up. Check it out. I think you'll be glad you did. You can also see why is ad-free or is adfreeforme.com. But until next week, and I think we might have a big announcement next week. A little birdie tells me that next week we might be pulling the curtain back on something kind of cool. I don't know. I can't confirm it, but I can confirm that we're going to be burying Jay Hossman further than he's ever been buried ever before. Well, I guess he did go to prison. All that and more next week, right here on My World with Jeff Jarrett.
Peace.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.